This show is brought to you by Huntstock, America's reinvented hunting show. Tickets and info at www.huntstockevents.com.
What's going on, everybody? We're at Huntstock. So you guys need to come with us. If you've been to other local shows or outdoor shows, this is nothing like those. This is like a giant deer camp. A bunch of like-minded people that are enthusiastic and excited about what they do.
We had a great time here at Huntstock. This is an awesome event. What do you think, guys?
One of the best shows that I've ever been to, really. More deer hunters here than there is anywhere.
I think this is one of the greatest shows right now in the hunting world. There's no question.
Down here at Huntstock 2023, had a great time, better than expected, better than the year before, and I think it's growing, and next year will be even better.
I gotta admit, this has been one of the largest, best shows I've ever been to. It's like a giant deer camp. The feeling that comes with this place has just been absolutely awesome. This is something you're not gonna want to miss in the future. The value of coming to this show is so phenomenal. That $40 buys you non-stop, almost can't get to them all seminars from some of the best people in the industry in the Northeast.
Huntstock is it. This is the premier show on the Northeast. Everybody is at this show, telling stories, showing things off, and waiting for you guys to show up. Come on out. We'll be waiting for you here next year.
Hey guys, so been a while since I put out a podcast. Kind of just been focusing on hunting this whole season, and with two young kids at home now, and Huntstock also taking up a lot of time. It's hard to get weekly podcasts scheduled, or even to get a podcast scheduled in general. Just a real busy time, but happy to actually get this podcast out. I sit down with Kevin Polis and Dan Jaros, two of my good buddies. We talk about our hunting seasons, a whole recap on that. We actually touch quite a few different topics. We touch kind of both sides, the double-edged sword of posting your hunts and your kills on social media, and the pros and cons that might come with that. Setting precedents out there for new hunters, the whole hunting recruitment thing. Is it actually a good thing? We talk about, just both sides of quite a few issues, interspersed with, talking about our hunting seasons. And then it all kind of leads up to this really good 24 hours. What was it? November 29th, I believe, 28th or 29th. Where all three of us killed big mature bucks. So we talked through all those stories. I update you guys on, I had a whole season where I didn't update you guys on anything. So, had a pretty incredible season. I saw tons of deer, got seen a lot of rut action, more rut action than I've ever seen before. Passed a lot of deer, had a mishap where I shot and hurt and injured, but couldn't recover. A really big buck that I had some history with, so that was one of the low points of the season. And then it was just 48 hours after that where I was able to shoot my big buck this year. So there's a lot of great stuff. It is a long podcast, so break it down, listen to it a couple days or whatever, or just throw it on, listen marathon style. I think we do touch on a lot of good stuff. And there's some good hunting knowledge in there, some stories, a little bit of everything for everybody. So let's get into this podcast now. Here we go. Dan Jaros and Kevin Polis. All right, we're back with another episode of the Hunt Suburbia podcast. It's been a little while. Been in deer hunting mode for the last few months and haven't been recording podcasts. But this is a Living Legend series with Dan Jaros.
We're living.
And Kevin Polis.
We're living.
Two living people who are kind of legendary.
Strive to be legends.
We know some legends.
Yeah.
Maybe someday we'll be one.
Yeah, but it's just nice to be back on a microphone. I've been in a fog for, deer hunting fog for a couple of months. Plus, I got Kevin. You told me about this many times. Like, oh, trust me, when your kids start getting a little older, especially you got a second kid now, it's going to be hard to find time to do anything. and it's definitely true. It's not hard for me to find time to hunt, but all the other stuff now, the podcast, it is really hard to find the time. So I've been focusing just on hunting, and you guys have been focused. I know Dan's got a year where it's like unique for you. You focused a lot of time on hunting. Kevin, you've hunted quite a bit. We've all got great stories to tell that we'll get into. But like, where do you guys want to start?
Where you want?
Start Maryland, I guess. Maybe just quickly go over that.
Yeah, we can start with you guys' Maryland fiasco, which I was on the fence about. And I just didn't know if I could make it, and I didn't. But we are going to get into. All three of us killed a buck.
Yeah.
20 in the same 24 hours, good ones. And we'll get into that whole how that unfolded and how it ties back in. Like Dan, you were saying, like, man, we were talking all year. We're strategizing in our group chat all year. We're struggling on this and that, and then all of a sudden,
boom,
bang, bang, bang,
bomb goes off.
Actually, it's more like bang, bang, thwap. Because Dan got his with a bow. But.
It's kind of funny. So we all met. I had never met you guys until the very first podcast we did, which I think was like episode 4. It was one of the first ones you did.
Yep.
I talked to you guys online, but that was like the first time we had all met, and we became really close friends after that. We went to North Dakota.
Yep.
Then this year, me and Kevin went to Maryland. So we talk, just for anyone that doesn't know. We've all become very close. We talk like pretty much every day.
The whole hunt season.
Yeah, exactly. And it was just funny. You just go through all these ups and downs. And we know everything about each other's seasons, and all of a sudden we just shoot like 3 big bucks in 24 hours. It was so cool.
It was great, and we just feel it. Kevin had some struggles this year. He was losing. One of the funniest things of the season, Kevin, was you and it's at your expense, so maybe it wasn't as funny for you. But you're texting us like, "This is unbelievable! Look at this place that I scouted all year, and I'm so excited for." And then, like, as soon as hunting season comes around, you got like guys in hard hats in there and all these engineering degrees and shit messing your place up.
Well, it was funny because when I was first getting those pictures, I'm like. I was texting Chris and other people that I know that do some of that work, and I'm like, they're just surveying it for next year, right? They're only going to be in there for like 2 days. And then like the next day, it's like people walking in, 6 people with laptops, and then next thing you know, the trucks were in there.
It just escalated. Dan and I are watching it happen
every day.
Yeah.
And then I'm getting.
I felt so bad for you.
Well, it also. I mean, that happens all the time. I mean, well, to me, anyways, it seems you guys too. I'm sure.
Especially you, though.
But yeah, the last few years, I've lost so many spots to construction. But that one, like, hurts more than because it's right next to my work. I spent so many hours since February in there. Like, oh my God, I had that place figured out. And then I'm like, you know what? I have a feeling all this buck sign was only here last year because it was, there was acorns. It was the only place with acorns. And then I got cameras in there, and I just was getting pictures of bucks. I'm like, oh my God, no, it wasn't just last year. I was so pumped for that spot, man. So pumped.
It was the gradual escalation, though. That was like the first time you sent it to, you're like, guys, I just got like a flash of like this green. What do you think this is? Is that somebody in there surveying? Like, maybe. The next one, it was like 2 people going by, with a pencil, and then the third one was like, guy has a laptop. The next time it happened, and you're like, but every time you're like, this spot is toast. It's definitely toast now. But then you would psych yourself back that you're like, maybe it's not. Yeah. And then there's a freaking excavator going through.
The video you got of the excavator going by your trail camera. I was sitting in the stand when you sent that. I started laughing out loud.
Me too.
It was just funny at that point. It's like this is ridiculous.
Yeah, and then on top of that, I'm getting texts from because everybody at work now knew because the dead end road that went by my work, they started driving the contractor trucks down there, and I'd get a text when I wasn't even at work. Kevin, I don't want to be bearer of bad news, but a big dump truck just went down to the end of the road. I'm like, oh my God.
But
so, yeah, that sucked.
But after all that, you ended up tagging out in the span of was it a week? Because you shot a nice buck with your bow, and then
2 hunts.
So it just goes to show you. So it's kind of funny because I had a pretty good year. I had a very slow September and October. November was really good. Pat, you've been
hunting since September 15th, or no? You guys.
I guess really like September 8th or
Maryland.
September,
Maryland,
I think.
Yeah. I didn't hunt a whole lot in October because I didn't want to get burned out because I just had a lot of banked on on November, but
That's something I think I learned this year is that
Burned yourself out.
it's not that I really burned myself out, but burning out the capital that you have with your family.
yeah,
Where it's like,
Yeah.
I wasn't really burned out. I was still out the whole time, but I was burning,
Yeah.
where it's like, I'd rather be hunting as hard as I can in November next year
yeah.
than, I do love early season. I killed 2 bucks early the first week, the last 2 years. And so I like that. And I like kind of getting the weight off and getting a nice buck, early on. So that's why I think I hunt a lot in October, because of just the last few seasons. It's been good early on for me. But yeah, I think next year I'll I even told Olga, I'm like, yeah, why don't we just let's book, I know it's crazy, let's book a vacation in October.
Yeah.
We can go peak
Build up
foliage.
some collateral.
She's
with the
been
family.
asking the last few years, like, I love foliage. We can't go anywhere because it's deer season. And I'm like, you know what? I think next year let's book a foliage vacation, whatever. Like, it's a week in October. November is going to be the best. It's okay. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yep, it is. It's good. I mean, even now, this is one of the first years that I actually haven't gotten burned out. I mean, granted, like, shooting a couple of bucks definitely helps. Like, but I'm still like ready to go. I'm almost more. It's kind of weird now because I usually struggle in December, and now New Hampshire's closed, and I was pretty much only banking on that. So now I'm just hunting in mass, and I didn't put a whole lot of work into it this year. So I don't have a whole lot I'm going after, and I'm like excited for the season to end because I want to start scouting. I have like so many ideas and places I want to go and things I want to do, and like I just can't wait to just start scouting.
Yeah, I'm the same way. I was feeling that way even before I shot those 2 bucks before Thanksgiving. All I'm thinking about is like January. I'm like, I just want to start over. But the season was going so bad. I just want to find some new spots.
Isn't that crazy? But it's not that crazy. But I've started thinking about that too. But I get excited for shed hunting season now too. I'm like, all right, the season ends. I don't have to be super cautious. I don't, you can let your guard down. And then I can throw podcasts on or listen to music and just go through the woods scanning for antlers, because I really love that now. And I talk about that with Pat Burns a lot too, where he's like, yeah, like Pat's at the point he's accomplished that the electric buck thing, which was a 5-year, every single day of his life obsession thing. And once he killed that deer, he was like, of course he still loves hunting. He wants to go out and hunt and kill big bucks. But he said, there's probably a part of me at some point, I'm just going to be a shed hunter. Like he can already see to the end where he's like, I'll probably not hunt my whole life. At some point, shed hunting, like he gets such a big adrenaline rush from the shed hunting, and you don't have to kill a deer, that like that enters his mind sometimes. And I feel that a little bit. I mean, I love hunting, but it is a different thrill and super fun to like walk up on a bunch. Like getting 7 sheds in a day is insane. It's like shooting 7 big bucks. If they're all nice bucks, you have that same kind of adrenaline, like holy shit.
Yeah.
And it's something really cool and fun about that. But
I've never gotten to do that. I found a couple sheds, never when I was like shed hunting though, but I haven't put a whole lot of time into it.
See, my problem with shed hunting though is, for me anyways, it's tough to, I think other people have the same issue where it's tough if you have limited time, you want to be scouting. And I find myself even when I'm saying, okay, I'm going to go out shed hunt this area, it just turns into scouting. I'm still looking for sheds.
That's
but
me, 100% me. I'm like, I'm not.
But you can
I'm
do
not gonna
both.
find
You
it.
can.
You
No, you
train
can.
yourself to
You can, but it's. I think sometimes like true shed hunters, when they're really just looking for sheds, you have a different path and method that you're gonna go do, as opposed to someone that's trying to scout a new area for next season or whatever.
Yeah,
but,
that's why I asked you the other day. I was like, hey, let's go check out some spots. Like I want you to teach me how to shed hunt, because there is very much an art to it, and I know nothing about it, and it's kind of cool. It's interesting you said that about Pat. When I was just talking to him, he was obviously just in here. I always wondered after he killed the electric buck, what happens from here when someone's that in on a deer. Like, what do you do? Because I was telling him, like, I don't have much going on in mass. Like, I'll try to shoot a doe this, in the next couple of weeks, and that'll be it. And he was like, dude, just go into a new piece of woods that you've never been in. Just go in. He's like, it's so exciting. And, it was cool. Like, I saw him, like, light up for a second. I was like, that's the next thing for him, too. Yeah. Is just the
expand.
He's like, you know, you don't know what's in there, and it's so cool, you know, and I that is really cool, and I'm like excited to do that. And it's interesting that he found that like shed hunting, and that is kind of where he like transferred his energy into after the electric
He's got a buddy that's on his same wavelength that hunts, you know, around where he hunts, and they met each other because they hunted similar places. And that guy is like in a loving, how do I say it, in a lovingly way, he's like a recluse. He doesn't like humans. He likes Pat. They hang out all the time. They go artifact hunting and, you know, metal detecting together, and they're on exactly the same wavelength. And that dude kills giant deer, but you'll never find him on social media anywhere. I've, you know, seen him on FaceTime sometimes when Pat will FaceTime him or talk to him when we're in a car together, whatever. But they're really good friends, and that dude he's killed monsters, like bucks that look like the electric buck too. Wow. And like a ton of them in the 160s and bigger.
Really?
And they both love shed hunting so much, and they both have, I think their conversation is probably where this idea, where Pat was like, yeah, he's like, I love shed hunting just as much as I love actual hunting, and I can see in the future there might be a point where all I do is shed hunt. I could see it potentially happening sometime in the future because of his conversations with his buddy about it. That dude will shoot like a 4-pointer. He's killed giants. He'll shoot, and he's around giants and knows where giants are everywhere because he's as obsessed with it as all of us are, and even more so probably than every one of us in the room. He'll you know, go in. He's like, nah, I just want to. I'm hunting. I'm not just trying to kill the biggest buck in the world. Because once you do that, you have such high expectation and you're setting yourself up to be let down all the time. And there's a lot of that goes on in the social media aspect of stuff today too, where you see people killing 5 giant bucks in a year, and you're like, damn. Well, if I can't even kill one, like, you know, what's the point of this whole thing? And it can demoralize you a little bit.
Sure.
That dude, Pat's friend, you know, he shot a 4-pointer this year, you know, his first deer. He'll usually shoot a meat deer, get one in the freezer, and then he'll hold out for a bigger one. But he's not, you know, just obsessing over a giant deer. And I think that's super cool and super unique. And I almost passed out from, I don't know what shed. It's not in here, but it was a set of a giant 6-pointer I found last year.
Yeah.
I was so excited when I found that thing. Like I like screamed. And I was like, yeah, dude. And I was fist pumping. And I remember like the woods getting all bright and the leaves blending together and almost passing out. Like I almost had like a stroke. Like seriously. And then I remember I called Pat. I'm like, hey, this is where, you know, I'm right here in case I freaking pass out and I don't wake up. This is where I'm at, because the woods were spinning, dude. Just from me, and I haven't been that excited ever killing a deer.
Yeah,
which is interesting.
That is interesting.
Yeah.
Huh.
We're to the point where I almost pass out because I was so.
The other thing too with it, I mean, I don't know. It depends on the person, but the shed hunting, you don't have the pressure. You know, because a lot of people, like you mentioned, put the pressure on. Shed hunting, there's no pressure.
No, it's just fun.
You know?
Yeah.
And again, in reality, and we've said it before, like the whole hunting and social media and having to kill a big buck and all that, it's all pressure we put on ourselves. Because, like you said, like nobody gives a shit about what you shot.
No,
it's only you. It's the deer's feed.
Unless like I care about what you shot and what you shot,
right,
and we do with each other, like your close friends that you're in constant contact with.
Yeah.
We all that you share that with them.
Yeah.
The social media like or comment or heart or whatever means absolutely nothing at the end of the day.
Yeah. Yeah.
Nobody thinks about it.
But like with the shed hunting though, I think this is like zero pressure, because really you're just out there doing, you know what I mean? I don't think you can. I shouldn't say there's zero pressure. I don't think you're in a position where you put any can put that pressure on yourself.
Yeah.
No
maybe
one's waiting
it
for you
can
to have a big giant shed in your hand.
Yeah.
Maybe it gets like that though. Maybe it can. You know, if it's the same thing as hunting. Like I don't know. I've never like done. I've never like gone out and actually found one like that. But maybe it gets like that. Maybe you do start putting your pressure on yourself like that. You know.
I think that you would find that people who were in the heyday of shed hunting before it became a thing that everybody wants to go out and do now.
Yeah.
You know, those guys have probably already realized that it's gotten to that point, that it's become popular enough that and I'm not doing any service by saying I love it.
Yeah.
I'm getting more adrenaline out of that than any of the kills that I've had.
It's actually not fun at all. Nobody should do it.
Because everybody's going to want to do it, and it makes more competition. That's the whole, like, you know.
Yeah.
I don't know. It's a weird thing that I've struggled with this year more than any. It's like, do I even post? I didn't post my kill.
Yeah.
You know?
I thought that was very interesting, especially you being in the position you're in, you know, with the Hunt Suburban, Huntstock, and everything like that. I thought that was cool, though, because it's for you, you know, and I think that's cool.
Yeah. It's just constant struggling in your, you know, you grapple with it in your mind. Is it a good thing?
Yeah.
Or is it not?
Yeah. Yeah.
Is it going to, you know, I'd want to inspire other people to, like, go out and hunt, but you also don't want to, and not that my deer, like, I'm just killing deer in the 120s, you know, I'm not killing monsters, but not like that's an unachievable thing, but some of these things are pretty unachievable. Look at Seek 1. If you watch in Seek 1 and you're like, man, that guy kills a 180 incher. 3 times in a season you'll kill a deer over 180 inches. And kids who don't know hunting or are just getting into it and stuff, if you look up to that could end up being bad. And you can see why that would be bad. It's like, if that's the expectation you're expecting, you want to strive to achieve that, I mean, that is pretty unattainable.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know what I mean? And it's not really what I don't think you really should want to hunt for. It's not like, what's the point of hunting just for that? You know what I mean? I don't know. I always struggle with it.
Yeah. Yeah, I know we've had a couple conversations about this, and this just goes into so many, like, other things, just like social media and hunting and all of that.
You're right.
It's know,
so many things. It's all the same. Where it's, you know, you see someone else posting something amazing that they did, and it's like, oh, that's what I want to do, and it's not the reality. Doesn't matter whether it's hunting or anything else.
We were just watching Josh Ilderton's page, The Untamed, and it's really cool that you can hunt in West Virginia in an old coal mine and spot and stalk a deer like you're in North Dakota or out west somewhere, which we all experienced that together, which is so fun and one of my favorite trips. And I hope we go back either next year or the year after together.
Oh, we will.
But, like, looking at that going, damn, that's cool. I want to go to West Virginia and try that now. You know, there's a double-edged sword to that.
Yeah.
Where
a letdown.
You wouldn't even know about that if it wasn't for
Yeah.
But it is interesting.
And if everybody influx is there and everybody wants to go do it, all of a sudden now quality of bucks go down, access goes down, everything goes down. It's
This is what you and me talked about when we were going to drop our bucks off that day at the taxidermist. I'm selfish. Like, I love it. Look, we're sitting here doing a podcast that's gonna go out. Like, it's cool. Like, I have fun doing this, and I this is all I do. Like, when I'm driving, I drive a lot, and I just always listen to podcasts, hunting podcasts, and I watch it on TV. Like, if I'm not watching TV with my wife, I'm watching some sort of hunting channel. So, like, I love it. Like, I am the consumer for all of this content. That being said, I hate that it gets people to, like, do all these things. Like, I've
Dan
never
wants it all to himself.
No, I do though. Like, just in the past like 3 years, I've never bumped into so many people, you know, like deep in a swamp, like, you know, like, I'll kayak into a spot and then take waders to, like, get further in there and then, like, see a camera in there. Or, like, up north this year when I was tracking, like, I was way up on this mountain. I was like, I was like so far in the middle of nowhere that I was like nervous, and like my inReach had died, and I was like, I was just uncomfortable, and I cut a set of boot tracks, and I'm like, what idiot is like up here this far away? And I'm like,
it's 2 idiots. Okay.
So, but that's happening now because of all of this stuff. So, like, I'm the biggest hypocrite. Like, I just fuel myself, and so much of what I do and how I hunt has been built off of all of this content and everything like that. But it's just making the woods a lot smaller, and I hate that. Like, I want less people to hunt.
It's so funny because that's what Matt Ranella, Steve Ranella's brother, went on the Hunter podcast. He's been on, I think he has his own podcast too that talks about all this, but like he butts heads with his brother big time because he thinks that, and to an extent he's right, that social media and the podcasting and the YouTube industry and stuff has all like hurt hunting, not helped it. Like his point of view is that we don't need to recruit more hunters. Like that's a lie that is based on one stat that one magazine or something published that was like out of context, that hunting, the number of hunters is declining like crazy. He says if you just listen to the Hunter pod, go listen to that one, because it's interesting, especially as a podcast host and somebody who started a YouTube page and wasn't thinking about any of this stuff when I started it. It's just that's a consequence of starting a podcast that takes off a little bit. You're going to draw attention to the areas that you're hunting. You're going to attract new people, which I always, and I still do think it's a good thing, but he has some good contrarian points to that.
Yeah.
And especially
but
being
you can
a
say
brother.
that for anything, though.
Yeah. Oh, very much
and,
so.
And when I say anything, you could say that for anything just specifically related to hunting. I mean, you can go all the way back to, when the TV shows first came out and how, it's bad for hunting, that's bad for hunting. I mean, it all has good and bad. There's no doubt about it. I don't think there's more good or there's more bad. I mean, you can just take, just your podcast or, your YouTube channels, just yours. And, you could see all the new hunters that you've got feedback from that, have said, oh my God, I learned this. And I'm really pumped up now to start getting into hunting because it seems more realistic. It's more obtainable. It seems more obtainable to me now that I'm seeing it. So weigh that. I mean, how can you weigh that compared to, okay, now I got all these people that, they're seeing all these big bucks and now they want to go kill all these big bucks, and it has a negative effect. Like, you can't really weigh it. It's good and bad.
Yep.
No matter what it is. You can talk about, scents with hunting and, any of that stuff. There's always good and bad. I mean, and it's the same thing with social media. I mean,
Matt Marnella's point on it, which he's like, yeah, of course, like, it's really good to say, like, I attracted this new hunter. I got this new guy into hunting. Now he's being successful. Now he's into it. It's going to pass down to a generation. But he says the only people that are saying that are the ones who are making money off of it, a.k.a. a podcaster. Now, people think, like, this podcast doesn't make any money. I might have made $3,000 on it in a year. It's like, it's passive, very passive income. And if I did it full time, I would be, making, $20,000 maybe if I focused everything on the podcast. Podcast doesn't make a lot of money, but his overall point is the people who have a platform or, a podcaster or a TV show on the network, or his brother, Steve Ranella, on Meat Eater. Those are the guys who want to say and justify that bringing new people into the sport is good for the sport because they're the ones making money off of it. So it's just it's super interesting to think about.
Yeah.
I just think, like, you'd be dumb not to think in anything in life, look at both sides of everything and look at both arguments and just think about them,
Yeah. No, it is that's very interesting. There's no right answer,
Yeah.
It's both of these things. It's good, it's bad, it's everything.
Like, would you want to do a podcast and give the GPS coordinates of the place that we hunt in North Dakota?
No, absolutely not.
Right?
Like, that's why when we
even
did
like
that
talk,
one, we did that one. I was like, don't bring up the name of the ranch.
Like, you don't want to do that.
Yeah, no, exactly. It's that. Yeah, I don't know, but the woods are getting smaller though. I feel that. Like, even my buck this year, I had someone reach out and they're like, "Hey, did you shoot this buck here?" Right. And I was like, "Huh." And they're like, let me change my question.
Is this your gut pile?
They're like, I know where you shot that buck.
It's there's no deer sacred. I would say that.
He had like 3 years of. He's like, I've been chasing that buck for 3 years, and which was cool. Like, we're gonna get together and have some beers and stuff. There's a thing like social media. Like, he saw it on like the New Hampshire deer hunting page, and he reached out, and it was cool. Like, I don't know, maybe we'll like become friends. Like, we can share a lot of info. Like, he knows enough about that deer that I'm like, okay, like, this is someone that we could share some good info and probably learn from each other on it. And yeah, at the same time, I'm just like, oh man, like this has happened like 3 times to me now, where someone was like, oh yeah, here's pictures of your deer that you shot, you know. So that's just what happens. There are I mean, if you really think about it, take maybe the super remote areas of like Maine, New Hampshire, and Vermont away. I bet there are next to none deer, like
Sacred.
big bucks, that only one person knows about, or no one knows
or that
about.
nobody's got on a
Look
camera.
at we were just talking about before the podcast. My cabin I just bought. I got a picture of one buck, and then 2 days after I got a picture of that buck, it was shot. And I
Big
didn't even
old
know
wide buck in
I
this
didn't even
new
know it. And
cabin.
I was, a week ago, I was in the fire station, and I just mentioned, oh yeah, I had a picture of a wide buck. Oh, is it this one?
Yeah.
And there it is.
Yeah.
Like, there's just no deer sacred. Everybody knows about it. They are shot at it. Or it's crazy.
Yeah,
But
it is kind of cool though when you shoot someone else's target buck. No, I mean, it's happened to me, and I'm like, I've let some of those things go, where I'm just like, you know what, like that's cool, good for you, like you figured it out and I didn't, like that's pretty cool. I think that's neat because and you should be. I think hunting became more fun when I like let that go too, because like a couple years ago there was a couple deer I was like, man, if someone shoots at me, I'd be so pissed. And this year I was like, I don't care, like I would want to see that deer, like and like talk to him and be like, this is cool, like, because at the end of the day, and this is another thing I got from Pat Burns, he's like, dude, there's so many big bucks out there, like, who cares? Like, just go find the next big one next year. Like, there's plenty of them around. Like, there's no need to like get pissed if someone else shoots your target buck. You know, easier said than done. But
it's not your. It's if
we all feel like, on it.
I make jokes too, like to Kevin. I'm like, here's the next crop. You know, here are my 2-year-olds that have potential. And Kevin's like, oh, it must be nice to have a crop. It's like, dude, it's just they're the ones that show up on my cameras over and over. It's fun to see them, but like, we'll get into that too, because a couple of the deer that I was really hoping to kill this year got killed. And then there were a couple also that like I had passed a bunch of times that had great potential, and I even got a few guys locally, not that I was trying to, but like somebody sent me the picture of this buck that I had passed. It was a spectacular buck, dude. Probably a 3 or 4-year-old. He had 10-inch brow tines. He had a third brow tine that was like 6 or 7 inches that came out, and he just like screamed to me, massive deer in next year or the year after. Like, just like this one, he had a tight rack, but every tine was tall, chocolate. Like, I just would have loved to see what he grew into. So I passed him a bunch of times. He ended up getting shot. But a few guys kind of locally were like, if you're passing him, I'm passing him. And then there's like, hey,
oh, that's cool.
And then he texted me, be like, hey, I got my buddy who also hunts over here. He agreed to pass him. And I didn't even I wasn't even like,
that's odd. That's, you don't,
but
not
they
gonna
were
find
all
that too
doing
often.
that. And I was like, all right, dude, this is cool.
And some dude just walks in off the street.
Yeah.
You guys are crazy.
Opening day gun.
he sent me the picture. The guy who originally agreed to pass him, he sent me the picture. He goes, hey, my buddy who agreed to pass him, his brother went hunting with him. His brother didn't know about him. He shot him. I was like, that happened. It happened.
Whatever.
Like, I wish that deer would have been a year older, but I don't care. Like,
whatever. Yeah.
There's another one around the corner.
Exactly.
Speaking about big bucks, let's hear about you guys. You guys had a hell of a day there. Why don't you get into that?
Yeah. We can skip over Maryland for now. I think we've
sure,
because we talked a lot.
Here, I'll sum up Maryland.
Spiders,
humidity, chiggers. If you don't know what chiggers are,
that's right.
you're never find out.
Chiggers, woods infested spiders, giant man-eating spiders. Did I say
lightning
spiders?
Storms,
Lightning
EHD,
storms.
chiggers with EHD.
One of my favorite things about this one is, first of all, I'm happy. Well, I'm sure there was great camaraderie shared.
Yeah.
And I missed out on that, but I'm happy that I missed this one. The funny thing is, if I would have gone on this one, the only 2 hunting trips we went on would have been the hottest most EHD infested trips of all time.
What are the odds? What are the odds?
It's become a joke now.
Yeah.
Like even my brother-in-law, he's in on it too. He's like, "Did you see anything?" I'm like, "No, man. This area's been crippled with EHD."
If Dan reaches out to you to go on a hunting trip, don't, because it's going to be an EHD infested area.
Wait 2 years.
Look at this great deal, dude. Everything's 75% off.
Yeah, so that was pretty
anyways,
much
Maryland was tough. We encountered pretty much everything.
Yep.
But yeah, we shot a little doe,
That's
which
right,
was
we
a
shot a doe.
huge accomplishment. We shot
That is awesome.
Yeah, I was
back
actually
with me.
really pumped. Yeah, we literally we brought a box trailer with like 3 coolers and butchering equipment. Like we were making
ready to
jokes.
go to town.
We're like, dude, we're gonna have to put new leaf springs in this thing. We're gonna have it filled to the top with deer. Dude, we literally didn't even get a shot. 5 days of hunting, we didn't even get a shot at a doe until
You
the
guys
last
reached out to
day.
Frigidaire for a sponsorship.
Yeah, that was a big smack of reality.
Yeah,
That was
it. That we talked to some of the locals. They figured over 75% of the deer herd in the counties that we were hunting got wiped out by EHD the year before. So yeah. Anyways, that was Maryland. So.
Did you meet the guy at Huntstock that you met that was from Maryland? Did he give you guys did he point you in the direction?
Yeah,
of where
but
you went?
And he didn't say anything about EHD.
No,
either.
he didn't. But he lived north of there, and he didn't know much about the particular areas we were going in. He knew that they were good. He actually did give me a couple like pins, which I thought was like the coolest thing. And it was a far enough ride up north that we just didn't venture up there. So he didn't know about. We told him, and he's like, "Oh man, I'm so sorry." I'm like, "What are you
That guy was
sorry
so
for?"
cool.
Like,
do you remember his name?
he was a nice guy.
Man, I have it on my phone. He
Yeah,
was
he's
one of the
super nice guy.
nicest
Shout
people
out
I
to
ever
you,
met.
man.
We hung out for like 3 hours at Huntstock,
Yeah, he
drinking
was a good
beers.
guy.
Him and his buddy. Yeah, they were really cool. So, but yeah. Anyways, that was Maryland. So
We'll go back.
Yeah, wait a couple years for it to rebound. And
yeah. So yeah. So
then the season.
So
yeah. So Kevin had a terrible season.
Yeah.
Then it changed.
I'll-
yeah. Why don't you talk about our
first
our
one?
better
I'll
season?
go
Yeah.
through quick. So yeah, my season is these challenges, no deer, even I should say no bucks. Vermont. I only hunted Vermont one weekend. That was the rifle weekend, and I think I saw more deer in those 3 sits than I did all season
In mass.
in mass.
Yeah, let's start that. Let's start
think.
that. Vermont's got way more deer than Mass. Let's start that on the podcast.
Yeah, a ton of deer up there. No, but it was
Go to
crazy how
Vermont.
I think I saw 9 deer in those 3 sits, and of course the one sit my son sat with me. We didn't see anything, but so 2 sits I saw 9 deer, 1 spike, all does, and then at my camp in Maine, and that's why I didn't hunt a lot. Didn't get to hunt Vermont really much at all in some weekends because I was buying a cabin up in Maine, so I was up there doing stuff. But I did have it take a few sits in Maine. I saw deer every sit, just right behind the camp, all does. But I probably saw, I think the same thing, about 8 deer there. And then Mass was nothing. You know, I only had a few spots I was hunting, and finally one spot that I started hunting last year. I think it was going to be my last sit or second to last sit during bow season, and I had the first buck I've seen, and I was like, I'd seen 3 spikes there. That's it at this spot. I had some nice deer early on the camera, and but didn't see anything from the stand. And then that night I had a spike come through, and then I had 5 coyotes come through. First time ever that I was squealed at a coyote and the coyotes didn't come over. First time it's ever happened to me. They just kept they just were going wherever. And then I had this deer come out of the swamp, and I saw it look like it had a nice beam on it, which it did. It has a nice beam on it. It just didn't really have any points on it, but I didn't care. I was like, I did not care. It was coming up, and it looked like it had a good sized body, and
that was a nice deer.
Yeah,
it
it
just
was
had a
100
funky rack. That was a nice deer.
yeah, I think it was like a 3.5-year-old, and you know, it goes back, dude. I was so pumped to shoot that deer.
Yeah.
And it's probably the
that's what it's
smallest
all
deer,
about.
smallest rack deer I've shot in like, I don't know, 10 or 12 years, but I didn't even think twice about it. I was like so pumped. Oh my God, finally a buck. Like I can't even remember even the worst season I've had. I can't remember not seeing bucks from the stand.
Yeah.
You know, small or big from a distance. It was just a bizarre season, but
That's a common theme in Mass too. Everyone's saying like they're having a weird year, but yeah.
I've heard that too. I just heard it from a girl that works for her husband. Same thing today. She was saying the same thing. He hasn't seen any bucks, but anyways. So yeah, I shot that one and got him in the heart. He went like 20 yards. I watched him fall. I was so pumped. So pumped. It was like I shot a 150-inch deer. I was so pumped. And that was the first deer. I finally got to shoot a deer in there. And it's funny because I've passed smaller deer in there, bigger deer than that in there last year. But either way, it was a 154-pound full pointer. I dragged that thing out myself, which is a chore. And then my next hunt was our hunt, and we went on that hunt, the Quabbin hunt, and that was a week later.
Super cool.
Awesome, yeah. Chris and I had 2 days to hunt it. We had 2 days to scout it, but in reality, we had a half a day. I went with Chris that Saturday, and he had to leave at like 1 or 2. I'm like, when we were driving out there, he's like, yeah, we gotta leave. I only got to like 1. I was like, what? I'm like, I thought we had the whole day. I'm like, holy crap, dude, we gotta move. And we literally, it was the definition.
See, what you did there, that's what you can do when shed hunting. You can move fast and still cover ground and see stuff and just catalog it.
It was the definition of speed scouting. Like, we had marked stuff on Onyx, and the very first spot we went to, let's go down here. We're running up that hill, because it was probably 7 o'clock by then. I'm like we're running up that hill. We're gonna see if there's any sign up on that oak ridge. We got up there. We saw a couple rubs, but we didn't really see anything up there. I'm like, we went right down to the swamp. We actually saw another guy that was scouting. We got down there. I said, forget this spot. Let's get the hell out of here. And there was tracks on the bottom, but we had other places to scout.
Yep.
We went to another spot. That's where we saw that red tape below that clear cut. That
like somebody flagged something.
Yeah, every 10
feet, some guy already flagged a spot into where he was going.
Yeah. So, and we made a big loop, and that was a promising looking area, though. It still looked good. It had some good sign, but I was getting a little. I was banking a lot on that hunt, and we actually had scouted it. It was before I'd even shot a deer. I hadn't shot my deer yet, so I was like really banking on this hunt. Like, oh man,
this is gonna be my chance to get one.
Yeah. And we weren't seeing much for sign on. We went to 3 spots, and then it was getting late. He's like, oh, I'm like, I have one more spot I want to scout. I'm like, I have it marked here. I'm like, it just looks really good all the way around this area, and there's no access from one side really. I'm like, well, let's just get up in there. And as soon as we stepped out of the truck, I stepped on a scrape right next to the road. I was like, holy crap, there's a scrape right here. And because those roads don't get used, they were just going, there was the run right there was going right across the road. And there was a whole scrape line going up. We followed that up.
You peed in all of them, right?
Peed in all of them.
You dribbled in them all.
We went up, we cut up. I said, let's cut up on this knob. We saw some rubs. I'm like, let's get up in this knob. Boom, we jump a 4-pointer. That was bedded up in there. And I'm like, yeah, I knew this was going to be a good area up in here. And I'm standing there, and Chris is just looking at me, and I got my back. And I just see his eyes like, ping. They just pin. He's like, dude, there's a fucking monster right behind you. Turn around, look, he's right there. I didn't even see him. There was a monster that got up out of these jack pines, was bedded in there, and I didn't even see him. And he took off by the time I looked. And so we said, all right, we're up on this. We're gonna hunt this knob.
Yeah, this is where we're gonna focus.
And I actually, where the buck went, I wanted to go scout. Was one of the areas I really wanted to scout down this draw, but we didn't. We just turned around. We saw a whole bunch of sign, and we just said, okay. We made a plan. We said, we gotta have somebody. I knew we had somebody across the road. I knew across the road was gonna be good, and that's where John ended up shooting at a big buck.
Yeah.
And so, anyways, long story short, we go up there in the morning. We get there, and John, you went to one spot that we marked. And
yeah, so you guys went in and did this. I couldn't make it for the scouting day, which kind of sucks. So I was going in blind, and you guys had spots. You and Chris had your spots picked out where you had already seen a big buck and all that sign. You guys were sitting golden. You had a couple of spots that you sent, pins for John and I. But for me, I was just like, you know what? I didn't know what to expect going into this hunt at all. And I was just like looking. I just looked for a big terrain feature on X, and I was like, I'm just gonna go over here. Like first day of whatever. So I ended up going there and I was gonna hunt in the ground. I think people had better success who brought stands in to that hunt, which it's a foreign thing for me to be in a stand with a gun in my hand.
Yeah, me too.
I've only done it a few times now, but so I kind of have this like negative, like, nah, I'm not gonna do that. I'm a freaking ground hunter. I'll sit at the base of a tree like I've done my whole life in Vermont. And it just sucked that first day, but it was only because I was not expecting to see so many hunters.
Hunters, yeah.
Even before it was light, dude. I was sitting down 45 minutes before daylight, and there were, and I thought I was way in deep, and I wasn't pretty deep, but there were headlamps going everywhere, dude. So there was a lot of people, and I just wasn't expecting.
What were the stats? You told me the stats, like how much land there was and how many hunters there were. That blew my mind.
5,000 or 6,000 acres total,
Like 4 by 9 miles
area.
or something, I think.
It's big, but
it's big.
And there were 200 permits or something given out. I think 180
200 to
people
300
showed up or
like
something.
It was like 1 hunter per 40 acres or something like
Yeah,
that.
something
that
like
makes
that.
the woods small when people are walking
Especially
around.
when you're like
that was
scouting like terrain features and shit. Everybody's gonna look and go, "Oh, let's go here."
And that was one of the reasons I brought a stand in, because I'm the same way. I don't usually. I'm not gonna carry a stand in when I have a gun. And was in the spot we were up on, you didn't have to be in a stand, but I knew I wasn't. I knew that guys are gonna be walking around all day. I'm just gonna sit, and I knew it was gonna be cold. That was the other thing I said to Chris. I'm like, we definitely gotta be up in stands because guys are gonna get up and move no matter what, because it's gonna get cold.
You know what the hardest thing is, which you guys did well and I didn't, is saying, no matter how many people I see, I'm just gonna stay in my stand.
Oh, I had the guy right next to me all morning.
Because you can get the urge to get up and move,
Yeah.
like I did that first day, and I covered so much ground. I mean, I was able to scout that day too, and I was able to walk up on doe. I saw a deer as I was walking and stuff because the way I was moving and still hunting and taking time and stopping, but. And there could have been a buck on any of those doe, and I could have also had an opportunity, right? It's all in hindsight, but I wish I was sitting that first day. That's why that second day I was so excited just to finally get to a spot and sit.
Yeah, and guys aren't gonna. They're just not gonna stay there, even if it's not cold. Most guys on those hunts.
Why don't we so we laid the groundwork for that day before we tell like the stories of our hunts. Let's go through our seasons up to the time that then we'll all be able to tell like the bang what happened.
Good idea. Yeah.
So how was your season before, Dan, and leading up to we all killed our bucks in 24 hours or whatever?
Yep. So September we came back from Maryland and I was just reeling for like weeks. I had chigger bites all over me. I'm telling you, the chiggers thing. I had chigger bites on me for 3 weeks.
Had EHD.
I was oozing EHD. I didn't hunt a whole lot. I hunted a little bit. I was bouncing around. I didn't have a whole lot going on. A lot of the spots that I was kind of banking on, I knew were going to get hot in November, so I was staying out of some spots, so I just picked around. I tried some new areas out. Didn't get into a whole lot. Once gun season opened in New Hampshire, I started having a lot of success there. So I passed on. So I have a camp in New Hampshire. And living in the state that you have a camp kind of sucks in some ways because I mean, like I hunt a lot like around where I live.
Mm-hmm.
But if you get one gun tag, so like I want to gun hunt around my house, but if I use my one gun tag, then I got to go up to camp for a week every year.
That's why I'm like looking for New Hampshire camps or Maine camps, because at least then it's a destination out of Mass where I can go and
exactly.
have a free tag,
So I was like, all right, one of the beauties about New Hampshire is that you can bring a gun and a bow with you. Because
you're the only person I've ever seen do it, by the way. I'm
sucks.
sure a lot of people do it, but when you send
so
pictures of like your bow hanging and your gun, I'm just like, this is cool.
Yeah.
That's really cool.
It is cool. It's unique. The tag system's totally different for anyone that like just hunts Mass. You get bow tags and you get gun tags. It's not like Mass where you get tags and you can shoot them with whatever you want, whatever's in season. But anyways, I was doing that and I passed on 2 really nice bucks. It was 2 different 8-pointers pretty early on. I want to say it was like the first week of November.
They're nice gun bucks, but
yeah, like I would shoot those.
If they came in with a bow, you were gonna shoot them.
That was it. So you get to shoot 3 bucks in New Hampshire. So you get 2 bow tags for bucks and 1 gun tag for $1. So that was my thing. I was like, if it's a huge, there was one particular buck I was going after this year. I was like, if it's him, I'll 100% blow my gun tag.
Yep.
Or if it's just like a really big one, I'll blow my gun tag. But other than that, just hope that they get in bow range. Both of these bucks, I could have shot so many times with a gun, of course, and they were nice. One of them I know made it through the season, which is good.
The 9.
No, not him. It was a different one.
Yeah.
But I passed on him, and I was like, oh, it was tough. It was like some of the bigger deer I've passed on. I mean, they were shooters like anywhere else. So that was kind of tough, but I'm like, all right, this is good. I got my gun tag for up north. So that third week of November, I went up north to my camp, had a great week hunting. It was so fun to hunt with a gun. Like, I loved it. I got to track for 2 days in the snow.
Especially after bow hunting the whole year.
Oh my God.
When you finally, when it's like, hey,
get on your feet. Yeah.
Oh, I got, at least for me in Mass, where it's like, I got tags now. I still got my tags. I didn't fill them in bow. And now I got a gun. You just feel so much more confident. It's a different game.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
But it's so fun.
It's just cool because physically sitting in a stand, for all that time, it feels so good to get on the ground and just walk.
Yep.
And I only got to track for 2 days, but man, it's just, I had so much fun. Like, I went to like the most remote areas I could, and I just went. And both days I got in a good buck, and I I tracked him over 4 miles, and both of them crossed the border. And I was like, you've got to be kidding me. So, but anyways, after all that week, we lost snow halfway through. So I was just doing some like ground hunting, sat in a stand a little bit, and this is the 3rd year owning our camp. So, I'm like starting to narrow down on a couple areas. And one of these areas we went on the very last day, the last afternoon of the last day. And I ended up shooting a nice 8-pointer, and I was so jazzed about that.
Yeah,
not one of the biggest bucks I've shot.
We'll get it. Is that the one that we're talking about?
No.
Okay,
This is before that one. This is just the one at the camp.
That's the first one you've got up there. Yeah.
Yep.
Oh, yeah. I remember that one. Yeah.
Yeah. This is the one up at my camp. It was awesome. I went in with a plan in this area, and I was focusing on it, and it just worked. And I shot him I got up in my saddle and shot him at like 25 yards and dropped him right there.
Dude, anything you get from camp, it just feels different. Kevin, you're gonna freaking love it when you.
Well, it's funny because like when the time that he does, I knew it was it took him a few years, but when he shot that one, like, I'm just buying my camp. That's all I'm thinking about. I can't wait to get the first deer down my camp. And here's Dan finally did it. Like, oh my God, I know how he feels, I think.
Yeah. So that was the 3rd year. It took me 3 years, and I passed on a couple smaller bucks up there, and I've come really close to pulling the trigger on a couple bigger ones that I just didn't, and I probably should have, but what a different story. But yeah, this was it. This was my first buck way up north and first one out of the camp, and I was so pumped. And we just got to celebrate back at camp with everyone and just do the whole deer camp thing, and that was.
Do you have a meat pole and everything?
Oh yeah, hanging up with the tractor is so cool.
Put a list up on the wall if you want, but that's one of the best things. Like at our deer camp, it's like such a proud thing because it's so hard to hunt around there, and when you kill a deer, you have a list of all the deer that have been killed and the year.
Yeah, my buddy has that.
Oh, that's
a
cool.
little note next to it, the weight, the everything.
Yeah.
It can get more detailed than the one my uncle has been putting together for the last like 40 years. He runs it.
Yeah.
And it's just like one line. If it fits on one line, like the note of the Word document that he puts it in, then he'll put it there. But you could like have it detailed even more with a little story or whatever, however you want to do it. But it's so cool to have the camp list on the wall, and then you like 30 years from now you can look at it and go, oh yeah, look, here I got one this year, and you remember little details. And this guy came to my camp, and he was only there one weekend, and he got this one, and it's all kind of documented.
Yeah, that's your story.
That's cool. We should do that. Yeah.
It's pretty cool. Just think about it, because it's a really cool tradition. I'm super glad that we had it at our camp, and it makes me like when I kill a 4-pointer up there, like that's all I ever killed was 4 or 6-pointer spike horns.
Yeah.
And when I go back there now, I just cannot wait. Just the way I hunt there is different. It's different. I'm not passing deer.
Yeah.
I'm just.
Oh, that was the thing.
Exactly.
You know, it's just a totally different thing. Like I just went out. Like it was a nice buck, but it wasn't like he's not the king of the woods or anything like that. But just a nice, nice 8-pointer, nice just classic 8-pointer. And I was so pumped. I was so fired up.
You had a unique year, right? You told us like I'm never gonna get this again. Talk to people about how you were able to hunt so much this year or whatever. Because that I think is, if you have those years, you have something that happens in your life where it's like I don't know if I'll ever be able to have this. You got to seize that time. So what happened? What happened with you? Is it just the market? The market just sucked, and that's
just have nothing to do at work. So I'm in real estate. I'm into like investment properties, and I do mortgages. That's like my big thing, and been doing mortgages for 12 years now, and I love it. And one of really why I get into it, and people ask me this, and it's kind of funny because they ask me in like a professional setting, like why did you get into this, and it was because of hunting. It was because you get to make your own schedule. Like it's not just a 9 to 5 thing, like I'll have to work weekends or nights or whatever, but in turn, really, like the whole like banking industry doesn't even really start till like you have different time zones. Like half of the underwriters are like over on the West Coast, like they're not even at their desk until 11 a.m. our time, so it buys me a lot of time to hunt. But anyways, anyone that's not living under a rock knows that that rates went up to like 8% this fall, which I've been kind of like getting burned out on just you have to hustle so hard for business these days. And you just have to just do a whole lot of things that just suck, and dealing with people that you don't want to deal with, and just like pandering to people for business. And
the worst.
It is the worst, because I love doing mortgages. I love working with people. All the realtors that I work with, like I love working with them. I've never really gone after the people that I didn't want to work with just because I needed to. Yeah. But that's what you got to do right now. And I've been doing that for the last 2 years, and I just got so burned out that I was like, you know what? I'm okay enough. Like having like a few investment properties definitely helps in those regards. So I was like, I'm going to take this time to hunt and just kind of just ride out this storm. Like we're so slow right now. Like I'm just going to hunt a lot this year because life changes very fast. And I was like, I just have this opportunity right now, and I'm going to enjoy it. And you know what? Fuck it, because I've worked my ass off for 12 years building my career. So I'm just going to enjoy it. So, that's what I did. I hunted a lot, and that's kind of why I didn't hunt a whole lot in September, October too, because I just really wanted to get work in a spot where I could really just hunt a lot in November and December. So unique opportunity. And I mean, in theory, I highly doubt that'll ever happen again. So I took advantage of it, and that was that. It was cool.
And that's one of the things too that I've just noticed over the course of doing 100-something episodes of this. I think this is episode 101 or something, but the people who kill the biggest bucks, right? Or they like every year, like they have enough. It's all comes down to time. If you have time, you can kill big bucks. If you have time and you can pass deer and all that, and that's all fine and good for. And that's people who have built their life around, like you said, you're calculating it. You chose that job so that you could hunt more.
Absolutely.
I've chosen my path now so that I can hunt more. And anybody like that, you don't have to be you're not an amazing hunter because you kill big bucks. You have a lot of time. You still have to be a good hunter. You still have to do your time, your scout, put in your time scouting. You have to understand the woods. You got to keep the wind in your face, all that stuff, right? Basic stuff. But the common denominator is you have time.
Yep.
And most people in the world, and I understand it, don't have enough time to be able to do that. Or they're not willing to sacrifice some of the other things
that's
that
usually
you
what
need.
it
That's
is.
the other half.
That's usually what it is. Yeah.
Yep.
And I'm in that boat a lot too. I mean, definitely. There's a lot of times
You must have hated us this year.
Oh my god! I literally I don't know anybody that's hunted.
Saw this buck. I saw that buck. Kevin's like, I'm just
I'm in
friggin'
work,
assholes.
I'm like, and how many times? I mean, the story of my life is. And listen, I get to hunt plenty. Now this year, I didn't hunt as much this year as I usually do, but usually I'm always going into the year thinking, oh my god, this is going to get in the way. Especially like my wife's work schedule has always kind of been the toughest part, especially when you have a kid. and but I usually always manage to get out, so it's never an excuse really not getting out. But this year and even last year, it's like it's always where, and like I'm like, I have this day off, and then boom, something happens. I'm like, crap, I didn't know I had to do this day. I'm like,
appointment. I gotta go do this.
I'm like,
I remember the dentist appointment.
But it's like, well, that was last year.
He's like, I was gonna go out today, but I got this dentist appointment. And Pat's like, bro,
Cancel
why
that
did you
shit.
schedule
That's what I did.
appointment during
I had a
November?
dentist appointment this December, like it was like December 4th or something, and it was a day that I was fully planning on going to the dentist. And then I woke up and I was like, damn, this is some really good wind, and like it's cold, or whatever the day was. It was so good that I had to call and cancel it. He just like, the dentist can wait.
But you're right, though. It is a lot of times. It's like you can make the time, but sometimes you sacrifice or do something instead. And
what you said, I think, is so true. There was something I learned this year. So I really focused on hunting like just big woods this year. I did a lot less suburban hunting this year, and the two things I learned that you just cannot get around. Like if you like you can shoot a big deer. Anyone can just go out in the woods and shoot a big deer. But if you want to shoot big deer consistently year after year, two things that there is just no way around is you need to do your homework. In the off season, you have to scout a ton, and it takes years of scouting certain areas like that. That's both of the bucks I shot this year were for years of scouting.
That.
Correct.
In little suburban woods, it doesn't.
Correct. Yep. So that's what I'm saying. This year I learned this because I pretty much only hunted big woods this year.
Yep.
You need to really put in your homework to figure it out, and then once you figure that out, you have to have the time. Like look at Brett, for example. Like they hunt such vast woods that they'll sit in the same spot for like a week straight, and they like every year it happens. Like they shoot a big one doing that, but you have to have that time in the right spot. Like you can't just go sit there for one day or even 2 days or whatever. You have to just put in a lot of time. And all the guys, I guarantee you, I mean, you know more than I do, all the guys you can think of that shoot big deer every single year, their careers allow them to hunt a lot.
The big announcements, Huntstock wise, obviously back at Wildwood Farm again next year for the third straight year. That event is just turning into a yearly staple for anybody who's been to it. I think most people want to go back again, and it's going to be that same weekend every year in August at the same spot every year, Wildwood Farm. And it's going to grow. It's going to always be updated and new experiences, new seminar speakers, or if a seminar speaker was there the year before, they're going to be doing something new and covering a new topic. I mean, it's always going to stay fresh, and it's going to be that same legendary atmosphere every year at Huntstock, New England. But the new thing is we expanded Huntstock, and we've got 2 events next year. And actually the first one on the schedule is going to be this new event in Vernon Center, New York. So it's going to be a whole new audience. There's going to be quite a few people, I think, who also want to do the Massachusetts one, but come and check out this New York event. It's going to have its own DNA to it. It's taking place at Vernon National Shooting Preserve, which is you can bring your guns and shoot a clay course, trap course. There's a rifle range. So there's going to be activities where you can actually do some live shooting. And probably be some demos from sponsors and maybe some of the hunters too. It's going to open up a whole new kind of feel, and also it's in straight up farm country. There's a lot of farm hunting around there. There's going to be some food plot hunting and seminars about that. I'm sure there's going to be some food plot sponsors that want to get into Huntstock and tell you guys about that. But it's obviously going to be a little bit of everything as well. The Adirondacks are only 30 miles or so from there. So there's definitely going to be some tracking stuff. There's going to be regular bow hunting stuff, timber bow hunting, and then, of course, you're going to have a lot of farm-style hunting content, creators, seminars, sponsors, everything you name it. So same DNA as, same kind of baseline as what we've been building in Massachusetts. We'll still have the 3D archery course there too. We'll have a bunch of sponsors, huge door prize pool, but it will have its own unique feel and flavor to it. And there's also camping allowed. for attendees. So go online, check out. There's more info there at www.huntstockevents.com. Tickets are open now. Early bird prices are out there. Prices are going to go up starting February 1st, so you're rewarded if you get your tickets before then. And anybody who gets tickets for either show before February 1st, while we're still on early bird pricing, anybody who gets tickets then, you're going to double the amount of door prize entries that you get with those tickets. To run through that again, 1-day passes, you get 1 door prize entry. 2-day passes, 2 entries. If you buy a 3-day pass, you're going to get 4 entries, and so double that if you're getting it in the early bird special. You buy a 3-day pass, you're going to have 8 door prize entries, and again, we got the best door prizes in the industry. So anyway, get on there, check everything out, get your tickets early, tell all your friends. That is how you support the podcast. That's how you support everything that I've been doing content-wise. I don't ask a ton from folks, but just come to this awesome show that we're putting together and building and turn it into this legendary event.
During hunting
and
season.
They've manufactured it that way.
Oh yeah, 100%.
Yeah, they've made sure that they work for themselves so that they can do it.
Yep.
But even so, there's always a point where I get to where it's like, and I go back to we all brought our deer to Northeast Taxidermy. Great taxidermist. When I went down and did a podcast with him, and I don't even remember if this was on record or not, or on the podcast, but he's just like, the way he was just like, man, we had a heart to heart. I don't think it was on the podcast, but he's like, I just see so many people as a taxidermist, right? I see everyone from like the guy who killed a 6-pointer and it's his first deer, he comes in here and he wants to mount it. And he goes, those are some of my favorite ones to mount, right? Like those and while we were there, a guy came in. Remember that?
Oh yeah.
That was like, he was like, I don't know, this is my first deer, and he was just so pumped about it. It was awesome. And he goes, but then I got guys that, they go to Africa and they go everywhere and they do 10 hunts a year, and I get 10 heads from them a year.
Yeah.
And they're stacking up, trophy rooms. And he goes, so believe me, he goes, I've seen people who have ruined their entire lives over chasing an animal.
A bigger
animal and a bigger one and wanting a bigger one, and they've sacrificed everything. They've given up their job, they got divorced, their kids don't talk to them anymore because they allowed that obsession to get so strong that nothing else mattered. And that hits me. Like, it's just like, dude, never ever allow yourself to get to that point.
You're good about that. I can see. You're a dad. You're a new dad and everything like that. And I don't know if anyone's ever told you this, but I see that in you. You make that time for your family. I think that's really admirable.
I hunt a lot, but this year I actually didn't hunt mornings. I hunted like maybe 3 mornings, which that was always my favorite thing. But I know that I have a duty to. I got to get my kids to daycare. I got to help in the morning and have breakfast. Helping out in that whole morning process. So I, started hunting around 8:30 or 9 every time, which is cool too. That also opened my eyes to, I saw most of the mature bucks this year.
Yeah.
Between 9 and 2 p.m. I mean, obviously I wasn't hunting the morning, so there could have been mature bucks there too. But
still, though.
Dude, if we get back to the whole season, thing, I saw probably 50 bucks this year, 180 or 200 deer. I was hunting almost every single day that I could, except weekends, just weekdays. Because again, weekends, I feel like I owe it to my family to like be there on the weekends. If I can hunt all week, the weekdays, because it's the way I've set my life up now, then the weekend we're gonna go do whatever we want to do as a family. So like during the week, dude, I saw so many deer. I saw that I passed 12 or 15 bucks in bow range that were 110 to 125 inches. That
was frustrating to watch, Pat.
that big 3-year-old dude, he might have been in the 130s with the 10-inch brow tines in the third one. I passed him so many times. I got great footage. I've got so much footage that I'm trying to figure out how I'm gonna put it all into a good video. So anyway, I forget the point I was gonna make there, but I just passed so many fucking deer this year. Had so much time in the stand. Loved every second of it. but I didn't let it. I did that without being the guy that's like, I'm gone every morning, by the way. Like, imagine a guy like that.
Yeah.
Says to his wife, I'm gone every morning. I'll be back. I'm hunting all the way until the end. And you expect you know, a lot of people have wives that would say, okay, that's fine, like, go do it. But eventually that, you're gonna, that capital's
not gonna work.
That capital's gonna run out no matter how many posts you make to say my wife's the best. I have the greatest, most supporting wife in the world. Like, that's another thing too that you see on social media a lot. It's like, I'm allowed to do this because my wife, like, dude, that doesn't build up the capital.
You have to know, like, you need to know who you're with and everything. And like, I try to do that with my wife, and she's very, very good about it. But like, I really try to be cognizant of that. Like, opening weekend of Gun, she's like, I really want to go. We did a fall weekend. We went away for a long weekend, and I was like, deep down inside, I was like, opening weekend, because like, I knew I had a very, like, a fully in-depth plan to go and kill that real big one I was after, and I was like, and I'm like, I'm gonna do this. Like, yeah, this is like, I mean, we have a great time together, so it was fun. But I was like, yeah, these are the things you got to do. And like, going to New York City last weekend, you know, I was like, that's a weekend during like shotgun season, and I'm like, you know what, I'm gonna do it because you.
But as soon as you realize that, like, you had that same thing as I did, and Kevin's had it. As soon as you realize that, you are like, you're not it's an addict tendency to want to go, I gotta be there. I gotta be there to kill that buck, or I'm gonna be missing out on that buck. And we have those personalities.
Yeah.
We are obviously, like, we're obsessed with hunting enough that you had that urge to fight going to New York City or to go on that early October thing. But if you realize it, then that's good.
Yeah.
You're not at that point that it's like like Northeast Taxidermy that Joe was talking about. Like, those guys would never be able to shut that urge off at that point and go do that. It's like almost like a functional alcoholic versus like somebody who throws their life away because of it.
Yeah.
Let's see what's gonna happen. Again, like, you know, I'm older than you guys, and what you're gonna see is, especially you guys have had so much success and you've had a lot of hours in the woods already, that you're going to go through these different waves in 100%. Your life of when you're not able to do it, right? Let's say that's this year or that year that you're not able to go out as much, or maybe it's not as successful. Like, someday Pat will have a season he doesn't see 180 bucks in one season, but you're gonna have the fact that you've got those under your belt, you've got all those experiences, and you got deer under your belt. It does make it easier. You're just gonna go through those waves. I mean, not everybody, but a lot of people will, and you guys, I know you guys will. And it's gonna be stressful because you're so used to going out so much, but it does make it easier. Like, I know, like, even this year, as bad as it was, you know, I've had enough bad seasons that, you know, before I shot the two deer, you know, it still wasn't killing me inside. I'm like, I've had plenty of success. I've seen plenty of deer in my life. It's just one of those years. I didn't get out as much as maybe I want to, as we all do, and you'll see that. I mean, definitely, like, you're not, and you know it. I mean, you especially as your kids get older, and you know,
I just think at that point you learn how to become more efficient by necessity. Like, right now, it's like since COVID, you know, COVID was the thing for me that's like, all right, like what you had this year where you're like, you know, the rates are crazy. I've worked my ass off. Like, I'm going to actually just take my time. I'm going to forego the money I could have earned by working my ass off a little bit more, or like going through the motions and saying fucking buzzwords in this meeting, right? Like, which we all hate to do.
Yeah.
And I went through that year too, where it's like, all right, COVID happened. All of our races, the Spartan race got canceled. I lost like 80% of my income because my income was 90% commission and 10% salary at that point. So I had all these deals locked in that I was used to getting every year for 10 years, right? Yep. Like that level of money, but it was all commission based. COVID happens, boom, the races are gone, sponsors aren't paying. I made like 10 or 15 grand that year.
Yeah.
But I was like, all right, well, the world might be ending, all this shit. Let's go out and start, let me figure. I'd never even hunted in Massachusetts at that point. I lived here, but I still went to Vermont every time. I'd go back to Vermont to hunt, and it was the only place in my mind, in my brain, that I could hunt. That was my hunting place. Deer camp culture was so ingrained in me. That was the only place that I even imagined to hunt. I never even thought of going anywhere. Midwest, North Dakota, no. I hunted out of my deer camp because that was the culture. So when COVID happened, I was like, all right, I'm going to start exploring. At least I got all this time, start exploring. But again, it just goes back to the time that you can put in. I was able to figure out the area around me. I didn't figure it all out that year, and I still haven't figured it all out, but all the knowledge I learned that year from that one special year that I had, that's like, all right, I've got all this time, that I'm still drawing on that. I'm still killing deer in areas like from what I learned that year. I'm still putting cameras up, and all that just goes to say, like, hunting isn't about like I'm the best. It's not like Michael Jordan or LeBron James where you're gifted with these talents and all this stuff, and then as long as you have to be both determined and physically gifted to be like the Tiger Woods, the LeBron James, the Tom Brady's of the world. In hunting, you don't need any of that shit. You just need time.
Yeah.
And if you have the time, you can get to a proficient. Now, there are people who can like catalog shit in their head and store things in a certain way and like speed shed hunt a little bit and be able to like do there's like some of those things that not everybody has that will help you, but the main thing is time. And what you were saying earlier too about the suburbs versus the big woods. Yes, it is a lot easier to break down a 200-acre piece of woods here, a 200-acre piece of woods over there, 40 over here. It's not easy. It doesn't mean that you're going to get a deer in there. Those deer still react to the buffer zones. If people going through there walking a dog, they're going to keep a buffer zone. They're going to bounce out of there the same way any wild animal does. But understanding that patch, that's easy compared to 100,000-acre patch of woods in the White Mountains, right?
Yeah.
Or in Maine. So it's just levels to it. If you have a lot of time and you live and hunt in the suburbs, and then a third piece that is really important, I think, too, is your ability to get private permissions or want to. I haven't even tapped into that much. I enjoy finding the public places that other people can hunt.
Yeah.
I enjoy that part. Now, obviously, I would love a freaking prime piece of private, right? It's just I haven't felt the need to like have to seek that out. I think next year I might be getting a nice property to, I talked with you guys about before this, which would be awesome. And it might change the way I hunt a little bit next year. But getting access to private, taking the time to scout it, and being able to be there enough.
Yeah.
Anybody can be really successful, kill big bucks.
Yeah.
And then you just got to balance it against your life. Like, what does that mean to you?
Yeah.
And what I challenge people to do is, if you're doing it just to post pictures on social media and get some likes or get followers on YouTube and all that stuff, don't do it because of that. Like, you got to find the love for it a different way. I don't know. I wish everybody could get introduced to hunting by getting into a deer camp and growing up in that culture the way that I did. I know a lot of people did. I know that's unrealistic, but I wish that's how everybody could understand hunting.
You fall in love with like the concept of it. Like I love that. I mean, I guess all of us, really, anyone that's a little bit older, like we all started off hunting long before there was ever social media or anything like that.
Yeah. The list was for me,
Yeah.
that was like almost like posting to Instagram. But the thing was, that was for anybody who walked through the walls of our deer camp.
Yeah. Yeah.
They could look at that and marvel at it, and then you have a personal connection with them. And like everybody that I've ever brought to our deer camp, like you can just sit and look at that list that has 200 deer on it since 1960 or whatever. I think the first year was 1958. 200 deer on it, something like that. Most of them spike horns and does. And spike horns and does are 80%.
Yeah.
and then there's 20% that maybe 3-pointers are in there, 4-pointers. There's very few 8, 9s, and 10s. But you go through it, and like that's because anybody that you know that walks through that door is going to be really close to you.
Yeah.
It's an invite-only thing. It's almost like a group chat, right?
Yeah.
So those people you can share that with, but it does feel a little bit, I don't know, I just keep struggling with it, like posting your own deer just to like show what you've got. It seems a little...
I would say most. I would
weird.
say most of the hunting community, especially like the younger hunting community, anyways, are not. They are not exposed to the deer camp. They're not exposed to that. I would think.
No, I don't think so.
You know, that's kind of a small community, and it's funny because you just made me think of my son when I don't know if I might have told you this, but so my son's only 13 now, and this year was his first year for him to hunt on his own, and he shot a turkey in Massachusetts. I took him out and he shot one and all that, and then after that in the spring he came up to my friend's camp up in Vermont, and it was the first time ever up there, and it was during turkey season, and he absolutely, and I kind of was shocked by it. He was absolutely loved it. Because cool. he loved the vibe.
Yeah.
He loved the vibe. And so I brought him up for opening a rifle season, and of course all the older guys loved him. He was like, he wanted to stay up later than I did. I wanted to go to bed, and he loved just the whole camp vibe
best.
And talking and listening to everybody like he was, and I was shocked. And yeah, I don't think, especially younger hunters, I don't think they don't. I don't think a lot of them get exposed to that. They're not.
The best thing about deer camp when I was young, dude, 9, 10 years old, was going to bed early. You know, the adults are like, all right, it's time for bed for the kids. But literally, you're just like on the other side of a shittily put together fucking, piece of plywood. And there's a like 8-foot, 18-inch gap between the ceiling and the plywood. So, and I was like sleeping on the bunk up there, so you can hear everything.
Yeah. That's
I would just go to bed, but just lay in there and just like listen to the conversations and the warmth of camp and the lighting of everything and stuff. Yeah. Like all of that, it brings me back to it constantly, and that's what hunting is.
Yeah.
Like I don't know.
We're getting on a tangent now, so let's get back to Dan.
So that's on the season.
We are.
So Dan shoots his first deer.
So I shot that one up at camp. I was super pumped about that, and then came home, and then just kind of like kicked it for like a week. Yeah, because then I shot my buck. It was at the end there, so. Yeah, it was actually, so then I did like Thanksgiving. We went back up to the camp. I only had a bow tag. I tracked with my bow because I had like nothing else to do. I just went in to pull a camera, and I ended up cutting a track that had crossed my boots on the way out, and I tracked that buck and I snuck up on him. I got 30 yards from him in the bed, and I could have shot him with a gun, but
so awesome.
Yeah, he jumped up, and I just had my bow, so I couldn't shoot him. Obviously, it was like slightly bigger than the one I shot too. But that was cool, and then that was pretty much my season leading up to the big one that I shot there. What about you, Pat?
I mean, dude, so much has happened in the season. But
I know.
Try to think all the way back to the beginning. I had quite a few. Well, the first week I was in California. Second week I got back and I started hunting. And I had a lot of early season action, but I didn't see, I don't think, my first big buck until I don't know, August 10th or 11th, and it was, I don't know if you remember this, but it was the first. It was like, I was like, all right, I'm gonna start rattling. I started seeing fighting on my cameras and stuff, and obviously I know they're tinkling the horns late September, but I think it was like October 11th, something like that. I brought the rattling horns out. Now, it was the 6-pointer that I shot last year with the muzzleloader who shed when I shot him.
Yeah.
I had I won't say his name, but I did a Euro mount to glue them back in to the year because they had shed.
Yeah.
And they glued in. It was fine for a while, and then it was sitting here where this one is. This is
that's
Pat's
right.
10-pointer. I brought it out to go bring it somewhere, and Like they
came off.
detached, and the skull like fell down. So rather than put it back into the skull, I was like, I'm gonna take those horns out this year. I use them as
Those big ones.
Yeah, I use those giant 6-pointers. They didn't have any brows, which is nice.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, that's right. And those brows. That's
as
perfect.
my rattling horns, I was like, this will be cool if I can rattle some shit in with these. And anyway, it was 10 minutes before legal shooting light, and I start looking at those horns. And then it was 5 minutes, and I'm like, let me pick them up. I'll rattle, and by the time something comes into them, it'll be legal shooting light. Because somebody had mentioned it. I don't remember, but somebody who listens to the podcast is a big fan might remember who said this. But somebody told me to do that before, or try it. It's all right. 5 minutes before. I remember asking someone, when do you start rattling? And they're like, you can do it. Like, start doing it like 5 minutes before legal, whatever. So that came into my mind, and I rattled and put the rattling horns down. It was one of those days that you can't really hear the deer coming in. It was probably soft leaves. And right at legal, I remember I'm in my saddle. I'm peeking around the tree, and there's a deer staring at me. And I just had that feeling. I couldn't really still see what he was yet. But it was just staring at me. And I was like, oh, my God. Something. And he was only like 25 yards away. But he was like chest up looking at me. So I pulled up. When it's that light, too, when it's just getting legal, you can't tell if it's 25 yards or 40.
Sure, yeah.
He seemed way further away. I didn't realize till later when I, ranged where he was only 25 yards away. But pull up my binoculars real close and lean out like that and look, and it's a big-ass buck. Like, I don't know what buck. I still don't know what buck it was because it was that kind of light.
Yeah, it was just.
But he was a big
enough.
buck, and he saw me do that, and he took off. And never got a chance at him. So I had a bunch of things like that. I had a really big buck that I could just see the glow of his white rack a few days after that on a really cold morning, and it was 20 minutes before legal. He was under my stand just walking circles around my tree, and I'm looking right down at him, and I see a giant white rack. I just don't know what buck that was either. Then I started getting the first deer I passed was that nice one with the 10-inch brows. Passed him, I think it was like October 18th. Came by, made a scrape, came into a 30-yard window, and I was just like, no, I'm passing him this year. Let him go. And had a bunch of stuff like that happen. Now, the lull period was kind of a lull. I didn't have I saw a bunch of deer, but nothing in range. And then I remember when November hit, and I hunted the same patch of woods, which is another thing that I realize, hunting public land that I don't have permission on, but it's public access to anybody, which means public or private that's not posted. Right? I'm hunting places that anybody can hunt. I hunted this same patch of woods for probably the first 45 days exclusively. I went in there every single day.
I don't even realize that.
Every single day. And the action never petered down. It didn't get worse. I never saw another hunter. That's how nice this piece was. That is, like, you have to do your research and really go on. Because I remember, Dan, you're always like, dude, how do you not see people? Especially where I'm hunting.
Yeah.
But I did a whole shit ton of research on, and it's a hard to access place. And it's just one of those hidden gems, I guess. So I was going, because of that, in my head, I go, look, dude, this is like prime territory. And I had cameras everywhere in there, and there were 4 or 5 shooters. And one buck that went through there one time, that was a massive 165-inch 12, 13 pointer. And he went through there once, but that was enough to keep me in that spot.
Yeah.
Although I knew it was a flyer, he went through there September 1st. He had no reason to be there. I'd never documented him ever before. He went through one time, but it had me like curious. So I was like, all right, I know he went through there one time. During the rut, he might come back through. And there's 5 other shooters in here that are 125 to 140 inches. So I stayed in that whole spot. I started down low at the beginning and, 2 weeks after hunting that same low spot, I'd go up higher on the ridge and I hunt, because they had these different crossings going down between the ridges this is one valley that I was hunting, right? And they had to cross between the ridges. There's so many crossings that it was so hard to determine where to hunt. Early season, they seemed to be lower. Like when that dried up a little bit, maybe because I was hunting there, I don't know, I moved up halfway and hunted the middle, and that's where I ended up passing that, 10-inch brow buck. And then later, I even moved up higher during the rut and saw a lot of activity. But that 13 pointer was a big part of why
Kept you in there.
I was in there. And I know all the surrounding areas. I know there's a lot of unhuntable around, and I know all the unhuntable pieces. So I started to try to piece together, like, where's this buck coming from? Like, he obviously doesn't live where I'm at. He was only there once, but he doesn't live there. I know that for a fact. And he doesn't live the way he was headed either, because I have cameras all down in there, and it was one of the places I sent you to hunt that time, right near that swamp.
Yep.
Down in there, I have cameras on all sides down there too. The only place I don't have cameras is the way he was coming from. So in my head, I'm like, all right, I got to somehow reverse engineer where this buck was coming from and try to figure that out, because it'll be dumb luck if I kill him here. So I started reverse engineering it a little bit and found a piece of land that I was like, damn, this, again, there's so much unhuntable around here, but this land, I was like, from Onyx and everything, this looks huntable. I'm going to go see if there's no posted or no trespassing signs or whatever around there, then it is. So I went to investigate that spot, and there was no signs. We're in mega mansion central, dude. $2.5 to $4 million houses that I just felt uncomfortable even being around, let alone like holding a weapon, right? And I park in this spot that is obviously like a little service area, and when you get those developments, you got a place that may have a little gravel fucking mound or something. Yeah. And I just parked there and went up through and got into it to check it out, and absolutely no signs anywhere. Again, in the middle of this no huntable area, and I get up in there and I'm like, damn, this looks nice up here too. It looked really nice. I brought 3 cameras with me. I parked them all on scrapes, and I ended up seeing a ground blind that was pretty elaborate that was built up in there too in one point. But it was like, I don't know, 40 to 60 acres or something. So I'm thinking to myself, like, there's got to be other hunters in here. If it's like, this is, and that ground blind, like, maybe he's the only hunter, whatever. Put those cameras up. Somebody posts on Bowsite a picture of this buck. And once you get really started getting obsessed with bucks and trail cams and stuff, like, as soon as you see a buck that is like the buck, it's like, oh, that's him.
Yeah.
Like, wasn't even expecting to see, but I saw it and sent that dude a DM. Hey, what zone? Yeah. We start communicating. So, yeah, I know that he's onto that deer too. And he's telling me, did you get pictures of him north or south of this major interstate? And I'm like, damn, you got that. He got pictures of him north. I'm way south, like 2.5 miles south of it, through all these crazy tons of roads. But now I know another nugget that he's crossing that major interstate and going even further. I would have never guessed it.
Yeah.
So I had a little nugget, and so I know that I'm on the right track, because that 60-acre little piece was on that way towards that deer.
Yeah.
I go and check those cameras a couple weeks later. Well, first, I sit that the first time, and I go, all right, I know I'm closer to him than I was where I've been hunting all year. And it was the perfect day to get into there. It was after a rain and the good wind and stuff, and I felt really good. Like, if I'm going to have a chance of killing him, it's now. I only hunted it that day, and that, I think, is my mistake, because
You didn't go back there?
I wasn't upset. Like, here's the difference. Like, Pat Burns got obsessed with the electric buck. He had years and years and years of history with him. That deer I had once on my camera. I was very intrigued. I really wanted to kill that deer, but I wasn't if I was 100% obsessed with him and that's all I thought about, I would have hunted there every day instead of going back to that spot that I was hunting most of the time. I would have been there every single day because that ended up being the key. This buck ended up getting killed. It was the one that I wanted to see when we went to Northeast Taxidermy because I know it got brought down there. I wanted to like see it in person. But it ended up getting killed, and it ended up getting killed on a piece of property that abuts it that is a gun club. And really? I knew all of this. So once I found that 60-acre piece, and I talked to that other guy from Bow Site, and he said it was north. You know, he had pictures north of whatever. I already was honed in on that gun club, and I went to their meeting and tried to become a member like that immediately because I knew the key to that buck was going to be to get into that gun club. I just knew it. And I know that in a lot of gun clubs, people don't actually hunt it that much. They don't, like, you know, people are there and they it's a club to them, and it feels like it's over hunted, but it's never. It's always under hunted at a gun club. So I was like, all right, well, maybe I can get into this gun club. And I'll pay the fee to whatever, be a part of it, and I probably would have ended up being a part of it forever. But my
your motivation
to get into it was to kill that buck.
Yeah.
And then you know, I spoke at it and stuff, and then it turns out if they voted me in, the vote in wouldn't have been till October 31st, and then if I was voted in, I wouldn't have been able to start until January 1st. Yeah. So I immediately just washed it from my mind. But that 60-acre piece abutted that gun club. And I should have been there every single day if I wanted to kill this deer. Yeah. Because it ended up getting killed on the gun club property. The way I hypothesized, I knew that was going to be the key to it. It just didn't work out. But I bet you, I still haven't gone to check those cameras. Those 3 cameras are still in there. And I'll bet you that buck is going to be on one of those cameras.
Probably, yeah.
And maybe he's on there a bunch. I don't know, but I'm going to go check him probably during shed season. You know, go pull him out of there. And I bet you that giant buck is on there because it got killed, you know, again, on an abutting property. But that was just one of the things of the season. You know, I was hoping to get a lucky. I knew it wasn't going to take any skill if I got him where I was hunting. But I tried to piece it together. It kind of took deflated me a little bit, took the wind out of my sails when I couldn't get into that gun club and hunt it this year. So I backed out. Plus, I just hated the access. I literally had to park between a $3 million house and a $4 million house and across the street from, like, these things just look like out of an alien movie or some shit, dude. Like,
all these people are ready.
And
to
I'd
yell
be
at me.
coming out of the woods, dude, and with a bow, and like
they
have 8 million windows, like floor to ceiling, looking at me. It just felt terrible. So, but I know people, you know, if you really want to get a deer like that, sometimes you got to do.
And there's a lot of spots like that,
and there's a million of them.
Yeah.
So that was my season basically. Passed a bunch of stuff. Saw a ton of rut activity. Got a lot of great footage of stuff. Passed 110-inch, 115-inch deer constantly. Like, they were just got really good footage of them pushing does under me, but I was totally fine with it. Like, I didn't feel like I need to kill a
if you
deer
have
or
all that
anything.
action,
to
me anyways, it is. I mean, you do want to kill one, but yeah, if you're having all that action, most guys, it is pretty rewarding, and you can kind of almost, it makes it a little easier.
It's
because you know you're gonna see deer.
Fun to pass deer, man.
Yeah,
and again,
especially
if you're seeing them.
I obviously we just give you shit all the time for not shooting those deer, but realistically, like, if you're having that much action, like, why would you? You know there's bigger deer around. You have that many opportunities.
I mean,
like,
also realistically, if you just have the time, why would you?
Yeah, exactly.
If the time isn't an issue, like, then do it. But if you don't have the time, shoot those deer.
Yeah. Well, look, it paid off because you passed those deer, then you ended up shooting a huge
but I still got a tag in my pocket.
Yeah. Well, but
that's right. You still get a week and a half or so, 2 weeks.
But yeah, it was the first bow season I haven't released an arrow during bow season since I've been hunting mass.
That's right. Yeah.
So it was kind of weird not to even release an arrow. I didn't shoot and miss a deer. I just didn't even release it. I had that, and maybe it's a curse because I got a Hoyt this year. This is my first year with a Hoyt, and I was all
100% a curse.
I was all pumped to shoot this RX-7. maybe it cursed me a little bit, but Yep, and then we get to Quabbin. And that's where Kevin's story starts in.
Yeah, so we talked about the
you're the first
scouting, and then we get there the first day, and you went to that spot, and me and Chris and John went to that other spot.
Quick question.
Yeah.
What I know they have like restrictions. What time can you get into the woods there?
Yeah, so so you can go. They let us in at 5, I think it was, wasn't it?
Okay.
I think they let us check us.
Yeah, it's supposed to be 5, but even they get there early sometimes. It'd be 4:50 and it was open.
Okay, that's quite a ways before.
Yeah, and so you
shooting like
line
that
up.
time
You
of
know,
year.
you're waiting to go in, and
Yeah, if you're the
we got there
80th
early.
car though,
Yeah, true. Yeah,
you know, you might not get in till 6:30. So we were there fucking I don't know,
we were there
3:30 or
early
something.
because I think I was up.
We were in line at 3:30. Or
I was up at
4.
1:15.
No kidding, huh?
I drove
And
up.
guess who was right in front of us?
Oh yeah,
Well,
Chad.
first, right in front of me was Kevin.
Well,
right
it
in
was
front of
funny
Kevin was Chad Whitcomb.
No shit.
So we just all got out of the car. We had like an hour powwow.
Yeah, there was like
Yeah.
6 or 8 of us, like guys just showing up all around the truck.
It was fun.
Everybody that we
cool.
knew. It was funny. But yeah, we waited in line, got in at 5. We got plenty of time. You know, we wanted to get there early because like when Chris and I went and scouted that spot, they were guys originally. So when we came down to the spot, I noticed there was almost like an access, not an access road, but a path, because because of the flooding and everything, there are no trails in the woods. I don't know if you noticed that.
Yeah.
There's like no trails. I mean, maybe there's some that somewhere, but anywhere we went and scouted, you might want to edit that out.
So we're gonna leave it.
I'm glad we're not trapped in a small room.
It's deer camp.
And there was no trails, but there was one there, and I was like, oh, that'd be a great spot to go, you know, as we were driving down, a great spot for somebody to go up in. And when we came down, there was a truck parked there, or 2 trucks and 2 guys, and they were walking right up there. So, like, we wanted to get there early, and we wanted to get to that spot. So, anyways, we get there, and Chris and I go up that hill, and I sent Chris over to the spot where the deer were bedded, and I kind of didn't know exactly where I was going to go, and I kind of was going to go to another spot, a little bit towards where I think you shot your deer, but I was like, when I got up there, I'm like, you know, I got carrying the stand and everything, so I'm going to go right here. I'm like just under 200 yards from where Chris was going to be. I wasn't like that excited about that. I'll be honest with that.
It's kind of weird to be hunting close, but
yeah,
also
with so much woods and
in big woods, yeah.
But I was like, you know what? I can see a whole nother area here, this ridge, kind of the ridge you were near and or on, and he's seeing a whole nother. I knew where he was, and I'm like, so we're at least covering different areas, because that's the big thing is it wasn't even so much being close as I want to make sure we're covered. I don't want to be hunting the same exact spot.
It's also really fun, dude, when you're doing that with a friend that's like, you know, like you're close enough that you see shit you can't, and you guys are like, hey, dude, like I just saw a buck going by.
Well,
that's fun.
That leads into this story a little bit where when I got up in my stand, I saw, like right at first light, I had a black bear come down. And I don't know what was.
Oh, cool! I didn't know that. Could you shoot bears in there?
No.
Really?
Everybody saw bears.
Really?
Yeah, there was, and when Chris and I went up on that hill when we were scouting, it was bear scat everywhere.
Oh, dude.
Really?
Especially when him and I were walking down, I said to him, I go, dude, I think we might walk into a bear.
In this room, there would have been 6 piles of bear shit.
Yeah, it was a lot of bear.
Wow.
It literally was everywhere.
And that bear, I don't know if the video, I put it on the video I posted. It's not great footage, but you can see him. You can see him booking down the hill, and if he came down a half an hour, 40 minutes, whatever it was, sooner he would have ran us over. He would have scared the crap out of me. I don't know what spooked him, because I don't think there were any hunters up there. But he came down. He was going right down towards the truck, so he came down, and then, I don't know, maybe a half an hour after first light, 2 guys came walking up. One guy was coming right at me. The other guy was kind of hooking down below where that scrape line was, kind of heading towards like below Chris. And I'm like, oh man, these guys are coming right up in here. And the one guy walked all the way up to me, and I don't know how he didn't see me in orange, but I was waving and whistling, and he got 20 yards from me before he saw me. And then he saw me, and he turned around, and he walked back towards the road, and I'm like, okay, he's going to go down and cut over or cut across the street or something, and he just went 50 yards and sat down right there all morning. and you know, the other part, the kicker about that is that And again, I was expecting that. Don't get me wrong, but those two guys, John was down there. John told them, we have two guys, and he told them exactly where we were. And they walked right up to us. You know, like all you had to do is go 100 yards down the dirt road and cut up in it and go down the ridge for me. But they went right up to us.
Big woods get shrunk so fast, dude, with 200
So
hunters.
that was frustrating. I hate being able to see someone. At least go so I can't see you. And so I looked at him the whole, he could see me. I'm looking at him sitting on the ground or standing there the whole morning until about 10. And he finally walked off. And actually, I think when he was still there, Chris shot. And so Chris that was up with me.
Yeah, there was lots of activity. Chris shot.
And he had a doe. And I think he didn't know what happened with that one, if he missed or hit it.
Yeah, I don't think he knew if he missed or hit anything. He was like, "Oh, I just shot at this doe."
Right, and then John shot a big buck.
Yeah, John
shot a big buck, and he had blood, and he lost that track. He couldn't find that deer.
That was across the road from you guys.
Yep. And then across the road, another guy shot a different big buck that he ended up.
That John walked up to and took a picture of. It was like a nice split buck.
Was his first buck he ever killed or something?
A nice friggin' 140 incher probably.
Really? Yeah. Wow.
And then
right next to John.
And then Chris shot a little bit later again, and he's texting me. He says, another group of does.
Hey guys, I just shot some. I don't know if I hit him.
So he didn't know. Wasn't sure if he hit them, and so I said, all right, I'll get down. We're close enough, and it was cold. I mean, it was in there for about 5.5 hours. It was
cold.
Yeah.
I didn't want to get down at all. I was just gonna eat lunch in my stand, but I'm like. I said, it'll be good to move around. We're close. I can get back up here quick. I said, I'll come down.
You guys had a lunch powwow.
That's right.
Yeah.
And I went over there at 11:30. We looked around where he shot, and all we found was just a little tuft of hair. No blood, no nothing. Looked around, went into the thick stuff, couldn't find anything. Finally went back up, ate our lunch.
Swords.
Yep. Did a little sword battle. And then you can tell who's drinking over here and who's not.
On Suburbia After Dark.
And so then so we split. It was like probably 12:30, and I was gonna walk back to the stand. And it was funny because Chris said, because that was the other thing, to answer the other part of your question, is the one thing that stinks about that hunt is you have to check out at 4:00.
Yeah, that's right.
So you gotta be. So we were saying, geez, we weren't far from the truck.
Shooting went till 4:45, and you had to check out at 4. Yeah.
So you figure you got to start getting down at 3:30 because we had to drive.
You don't want to shoot a deer at 3:30 either.
Just the
technically.
Loop. We're on a one-way road, and we'd have to drive all the way down. Now you can shoot one later. It's just if you shoot one and you're not going to make it out by 4, you have to call them ahead, and they send somebody up and all that, which is fine. But still, if you haven't shot anything,
most people are getting out of the woods at 2:30.
Yeah,
or starting to leave their spot. Yeah,
and so that's early. It's super early.
Oh yeah.
So he jokingly said, he's like, "Hey, we got to shoot one at 2:00. Shoot it at 2 because, so we can get out of here in time." And then I went back to the stand. I think I was back in my stand by 12:30. And I've been hearing squirrels all day behind me, beside me, all around. And it was windy too that day. It was windy, especially up on that hill.
Yeah.
And so it was hard to hear if anything was coming. And I hadn't seen a deer all day. And then one little before 2:00, I heard something behind me, and I'm like, oh, that freaking squirrel again. And I looked over to my left. And it was the best spot for me to shoot a deer, too. It was like the whole day I kept saying, there's some jack pines right over here. Then it opened up, and then it was thick again. But it was just a perfect area for one. And it was on my, on my good side, my shooting side.
Yeah.
And I looked over, and there were 3 doe standing there. And I'm like, holy shit, there's 3 deer right there. And I was just excited I saw a deer. That's it. Okay, and I don't have to sit here all day and say I didn't see a deer. So I was super pumped. And literally my first instinct was to pull my phone out because all year that's all I've been seeing is does. I was going to pull my phone out and film them. And I literally said to myself, I'm like, you idiot, what are you doing? There could be a buck behind him. Because, there's almost never a buck behind him.
That reminds me. Yeah, keep going.
So I'm like, there could be a buck behind him. And I'm like, and I literally looked over and just sticking out from behind a tree, a jack pine in a big tree. I see what looks like 2 tines, and I'm like, and I look, and I'm like,
can't be.
And literally, it just moves for a second, And then I look and I see its mouth and it had something hanging out of its mouth. It was eating something. I was like, holy shit, there's a friggin' buck right behind him. It was like instant too. It wasn't like I waited. Like I looked over and said, look behind them. And I looked behind him and I just saw the tines. I'm like, holy shit, there's a buck there. I had no clue how big he was.
Yeah.
And I'm just waiting and I could see his tines. And I'm like, I'm shooting that deer. Like that looks like a half decent rack. But it was still hard to tell because a lot of it was behind the tree. Couldn't see any of the body. And I'm waiting and waiting. It seemed like forever. And the does had moved out a little bit. It was 3 of them. And I'm sitting in, all of a sudden I can't see the buck anymore. So now I start panicking. I already was panicking. I was already getting all my adrenaline was going. I'm like just waiting and waiting. And I'm like, oh my God, did my wind shift? Did I get my wind? Did he slip? Because I can't see where they kind of came from. Now, meanwhile, my phone's going off my pocket. And I'm like, I bet you that's Chris. I bet you saw these deer. And he's texting me, telling me the deer coming. But obviously I'm not pulling my phone out. And I can't see the buck. I'm like, oh my God.
Meanwhile, I see what Chris texted.
Yeah, and I'm sitting there. These
goes,
guys,
buck going your way, Kevin.
Yeah.
Oh, shit.
Kevin didn't see it yet, but
No.
I seen it in the group chat.
And I'm like, and I'm thinking, oh my God, this deer, because it felt like I watched it forever, where I could see its tines, and now I can't see anything. And I'm thinking, why would I see less of it now? If anything, it's gonna stay there, or it's gonna be out closer to the does, which is out in the open. And I'm like, oh my God. I started panicking. I'm like, he friggin' got my wind. He slipped away and I can't see. So I can't even see if he went that way. And I'm like, you know everything that goes through you. And I'm like, oh my God. I'm thinking all the negative thoughts. Because all I was doing all day in that stand was thinking of negative things about about my hunting season and everything. And then I did start thinking positive though, right before I saw those deer. That was a whole nother thing. But I did start changing my tune and it kind of willed some deer to me. But I was like panicking, and then now finally I see him pop his head out even more, and I'm like, I just saw, okay, it looks like a good rack. I didn't know what it was. I didn't think it was as big as it was, but I'm like, I see bone. It looks good. It's not a basket rack, and so he comes out in the open. I'm like, it's almost like one of those slow motion moments where, even though I'm like, where I could almost remember saying to myself like, holy shit, this is like perfect. Like it doesn't ever happen. It's perfect. Like he's coming out and he stopped a little couple bushes, but I'm like right on him, right on his shoulder, and he's broadside. He's on my best side. I even have the tree to stabilize on and everything, because I was a little skeptical. Again, I don't hunt with a gun on a stand, very rarely, maybe in Vermont a little bit, never in Mass. So I was like, and it's different in a stand, but I had a stable, and boom, I friggin' shoot him. He hunches up and he walks slow, So I immediately start reloading, and I'm trying to watch him.
Shotgun or muzzleloader?
Muzzleloader. So I had the muzzleloader, and
Kevin's a felon, so he only hunts.
Yeah, he'll only hunt with a muzzleloader and bass.
So also nowhere within 500 feet of a school.
And so he's like walking real slow, but he's going behind bushes, and I'm trying to watch him at the same time as I'm loading the stand. And the one thing I wish there was a camera on me is I couldn't get the primer out, and I have my gloves on, and I can't get the primer, the old primer out of my
gloves.
And I'm trying to grab it. I'm trying to get it with my mouth. I'm like, I finally just take it and I shake it out, and I get it, and I'm looking, and I could see there's only one opening now. He's at like 70 yards or so, and I could see where he's gonna go, and I get the primer and I get it right up, and now he's like more out in front of me a little bit, and there's just one window, and he kind of stops there, and you can tell he's hurting, But the way he was walking, I'm like, geez, did I gut shoot him? Like, it was just the way he was walking, and it was thick, and and I'm like, oh my God, I'm like, I can't shoot. He's in the open, but not really. There's all these tree branches. And then I'm like, wait a minute. And I just like hunched way down. I got way down. And I'm like, all the branches were gone. And I had an opening. I'm like, holy shit. And I'm like, I just put it right on his shoulder. Boom. And it was just smoke. The first shot, I don't even remember all the smoke. But the second shot, smoke. I was like, ah! I forgot I had a muzzleloader. And I looked, and I see him like kind of fall over. Or I thought I did. And I hear him crash. And I literally, it's just definitely one of those like, I don't believe that just happened moments. Like, I mean, it definitely was one of those. I can't believe. I think he just friggin' fell over, and it's funny because I didn't call anybody. The only person I did call my wife, But like I didn't
Well, when
call
you
or
walked
text
up?
anybody except you guys. Like
Yeah.
because I know like I got Chris over here. He just heard, and I know
the thing that you didn't, that nobody knows yet, was that when I'd walked the friggin' entire place, and I had just finally got to the place where you guys told me to hunt in the morning.
Oh yeah, that's right.
The clear cut, which is closer to you guys.
Yeah.
I had just got there and sat down at about 1:30. I'm like, all right, I'm gonna sit here the whole day. And when I heard the shots, in my head, I'm like, I think, based on the orientation of everything, that sounds like that was either Chris or Kevin. And I hear that, and then I hear a second shot, and I'm like, and then after that, I get my phone, and I'm like, dude, now I'm putting it together. I'm like, maybe it was Chris or Kevin. I pull it out, and that's when I see Chris said, I just saw a big buck heading towards Kevin. I think that shot was Kevin or whatever it was after the shot, because it was like, boom. I was like, yes.
And then he said something like, Chris was like, was that second shot necessary? Which I don't know what he meant by that. And then I just texted like buck down, I think, something like that.
And I was like, yes, dude.
Because I was pretty confident he was down. Like, you're still always skeptical, but, and then I didn't want Chris to come over. That was at 155 when I shot him. I looked down, it was 155.
Yeah.
And I wasn't.
Chris wants to. He has to.
I know, which was fine. I didn't want him to. I kind of
in my head too. It's like, yeah, keep hunting, dude. There's plenty of time.
but I actually didn't even know he was coming over at first. Like, I don't even remember. I was in such shock. Like, I can't remember being in such shock from shooting a deer in a while. Like, it's been a while that I had that feeling. And it's funny because when I go back and look at the video like that you took and when we're weighing the deer in, I look all cool and I'm not really super excited. And I'm like, oh my God. And I remember I was in just total shock. Like, I can't believe like it just panned out, like how bad the season's been. And I'm looking over this deer right now. But
and it was a beautiful 7-pointer.
yeah, and it grew. It was one of those that grew when I walked up to it. Because I said to Chris, I didn't know Chris was coming over first. I texted him. I think I called him. I called him, and I was like, yeah, and I was like, it's just, I go, stay there if you want, stay there. I'm like, I think he's down, but I got to take my time and get the stand down and all that. And I reloaded and I started getting down. And I wasn't even down at the bottom of my stand yet. And Chris was already walking over and I'm like, oh shit. I'm like, he already got his climber and everything. And he was coming over and I'm like, all right. So I was pumped and, we walked right over and he filmed the recovery, which was cool. And, I was like, at first I walked over, you could see me on the camera because I started getting a little nervous because there was a tree down. And when I thought it was on the other side of that tree and I coming up to the tree and I'm like thinking he was going to be right there and he's not right there. And I'm like, oh my God, I'm almost positive that's where he was standing. I'm like, so I'm like, I go like this and I'm like, I think he's right over there. And then I looked to the left and he was like, I saw him laying like his back to me. I couldn't even see his rack yet. And then I stepped over and I'm like, holy shit. Chris is like, he's like, that's not a small buck. Because I said to him, like, I don't know, like, I said,
dude, it's probably 100. I don't know if you measured 130 inches. If you, I don't know, 125, 135.
Yeah, probably the 120.
It's a big ass 7-pointer.
But yeah, he's big body and big,
huge body,
big rack, big long tines, big main beam, and he was big.
Big wormhole.
When I walked up to him, it was definitely one of those ones that grew because I didn't think he. But again, I didn't even, I almost barely have a look at the racks. I saw that rack. I was like, everything else was like, okay, pay attention. And it was the first deer I got with a muzzleloader too, so that was cool. But
that's cool.
But that was cool.
$2 in a week, and it was after like
I know after the excavator season.
And that morning too, just to add in there, Chadwick shot a nice one first thing in the morning, big 8 or 9 pointer. I think
I texted him at like 8 a.m. I'm like, hey, any luck yet? And he sent me back the picture of that deer. I almost couldn't believe him. Like, is he trolling me?
Yeah.
Because it was like the first thing in the hunt.
Yeah, it was like, really
nice.
early
He's
because
like,
you sent it. I'm like, he's like, beautiful. Chad's already got one. I was like, whoa.
Yeah.
And so we brought that back. We checked it in. That was pretty cool. But yeah, I was definitely in total shock. I will say, I was shocked.
You deserved it, man. After you've had a couple of seasons where like you've been in flux, finding new spots, places that you used to hunt for a long time, and now you're.
And I hadn't shot I hadn't shot a big one, and I mean, the last good buck I shot was like in 2020, but I hadn't shot a big one since like 2017. So it's been a few years since I actually shot a
really nice,
a mountable deer. Anyways, not that I care that much, but it's cool.
It's cool to shoot.
Yeah, I know. It's to walk up on it.
Old.
No, definitely it is. I mean,
and it was just cool that all of us were there for.
Well, so that's the last thing I was gonna say was that, and it might be a little cliche, but it really was like. I was saying to my wife, I'm like, Chris was super confident that we were going to get 2 or 3 deer, and I wasn't. I'm like, but I just kept saying to my wife, I'm like, hope we just get 1 deer and we get that, like, because when you go in a group like that, it's a mini,
deer camp
mode, and it's like somebody gets one. Everybody gets one, and it's that awesome feeling, and obviously we get to experience it together and celebrate it together and all that. But, I was saying to my wife, I'm like, I just hope we get 1. Somebody gets 1. It'd be nice if it was a nice buck, and we can all kind of just revel in it together. And yeah, it was awesome, like, having you guys there, and we just get to take pictures and go away. Yeah,
for Chris, it was probably great, too, because he put it all together.
He put it all together, and
like,
100%.
Guys, we should, put in a team for this draw.
Yeah. Definitely. I wouldn't have done that hunt if he didn't even mention it. I wouldn't even have put in for it.
He was right there with you, helped you drag yours out, and then he helped me drag mine out the next day, and we'll talk about all that too. But
it was cool. It was a good experience.
Piss break.
Yeah. Let's go do your piss break, and then and we'll get into your deer next.
You guys want to keep rolling while I go, or you guys want to take a break?
Take a break.
Yeah, take a break.
Yeah.
We got a couple things, and then we're gonna get back into those stories about our bucks, but. You just brought up another thing we got to hit on. We're not like super crazy. It's been an hour and 40 minutes. We got a little bit of time here, but making mistakes. Scotland has come down to hunt with me. I got Scotland into hunting a few years ago, and he's like just taken to it like. And neither of you guys have met him.
Yeah, I have. I've met him. Yep, a couple times.
He's an awesome dude, and he would click with you guys. But he's taken to hunting really well. In the first 4 years of my deer camp, he's killed 3 bucks, which is insane. And
nice deer too. It's crazy.
Yeah. 2 6-pointers, and the 4-pointer he got this year was a massive 4-pointer. It was 5.5 years old. Mature buck, weighed a lot. It was just a big 4-pointer, long main beams. But when he comes down here, he really wants to get one with all 3 were with a rifle. He wants to get one with a bow, so he brings his bow down. And even last year he came bow season, then muzzleloader. He drew out a buck with his bow last year, an 8-pointer, and he picked him off and ran away. He never released it. And then he came down during muzzleloader season, and he had 3 bucks fighting in the spot that I put him in.
Holy shit!
3 bucks fighting. So he had like the pick of like which one do I want to shoot. Shot at the biggest one, but completely missed. I mean, we looked and he just missed. So when he comes down here, he learns a shit ton. He's making mistakes. In Vermont, like he's 1 shot, 1 kill every time. He's a really good shot with his rifle. But he's learning. When he comes down here, like he's been learning. And then this year he came down, and I brought him where I actually brought both you guys to this spot. You hunted it with me this year one day. And then you came after Connecticut. You came in there. There's 2 really nice big bucks in there, and I brought Scotland in there. I think it was November 4th with his bow, and I put him in one spot, and I was hunting the spot that you hunted. I was over in there. Scotland was over in a different spot. Anyway, I get 7 texts. And when you're hunting with a buddy that's called like that, always like, all right, look at this. There's gonna be some dope shit on there. And it was Scotland going, Pat, capitals, OMG, capitals, right? I'm seeing that shit. I'm like, oh come on, what'd you shoot? He's like, I just shot at a buck, but it went right under his belly. In the whole story he recounts, it was a really nice 7-pointer, and I have this buck on camera too. It wasn't one of the 2 giants in there, but it was a great, respectable buck too. And for him, he just wants to get one with his bow, and the deer manifested out of nowhere. He didn't have all his ranges completely dialed in. he was so used to just
quick
from
snap,
target
boom.
practicing, just putting his 20 pin and shooting 20s most of the time. So when it came in so fast, he just put the 20 pin on it and shot, but it was actually 28 yards away, and it went just under his belly. But perfect left to right, like it would have been a great shot if it was right on. And you know, he reflects on that, and he tells me, you know, I realized, Pat, like I wasn't meant to take that buck at that point. I was meant to learn that lesson from that. Like I came down here, I learned a lesson again, another year in a row, and he learns from it. And
there's definitely a lot more opportunity for mistakes in bow hunting than there is with a gun. That's for sure.
Yeah.
There's so many opportunities there to make a mistake.
For sure. So he's still chasing that, and I know he'll probably get one next year with the bow. He's learned, you know, but you do have to make mistakes. Yep. And that kid Justin that I've been mentoring this year, he's made a bunch of mistakes this year. He's killed a couple of deer, killed a doe, he killed the spike horn that I got him in that same spot that I hunted over and over again all 45 days. I brought him in there because I just knew it was producing. And if I wanted to get somebody to kill a deer, you bring him in there. Yeah. And I put him in a spot there. He ended up killing a deer that day. But even that gave him a lot of lessons. It was a really bad shot. It was quartering to him, right under him, and like through brush and stuff. But his rookie, you know, brain and all that is like, here's
tunnel vision,
there, I'm shooting.
Yeah.
And it was like everything about it was a bad idea. You should have waited for him to. The way that buck was traveling was going to open up a perfect like quartering away or quartering shot if you just let it develop, you know. But he's not used to that, and it made that buck suffer a little bit. I heard him groaning, but I thought he died because I heard him from my stand doing death groans and all of that stuff. And then we let him wait for 5 hours. I told him, like, you just stay in your stand because he might be dead. I think he's dead. I heard him doing death groans, but just stay there because there's nothing that can be gained from getting down and going. Yeah. So he stayed in his stand. We went and found him later. He got down, I met him, and we went to go look for him, and we jumped him up out of a bed, and he wasn't doing good, but he was still alive. And we ended up recovering him later that night, like at 10, 11 p.m. But he learned a lot of things from that, and you just have to. Mistakes, you have to learn from those, especially if you're just getting into it. And that brings me to when you said, like your thought was when you saw those does, like, pull out your phone, get some footage of those beautiful does. Let's get some footage of those babies. That was my same mistake that I made 2 days before this Quabbin hunt, the opening day of gun season.
Was it 2 days before? I didn't realize it was that.
Yeah.
I didn't realize that either.
Opening day of gun season.
Yeah.
I had all my tags still. I got my gun in my hand. I'm like, all right. And I left all the places I've been hunting all year. And again, like you said, just go to a new patch of woods. It's not completely new because I've hunted there in years past, but I hadn't been there at all this year at all. The year before, I hadn't been. I went there maybe once or twice. The year before that, my cameras were lit up in there. But in 2022, it's like the deer bounced out of there. They were nowhere to be seen, so I didn't even hunt it there much. This year, I never had been in there, but I'm like, all right, gun season, let's go. I want to go check. I'm going to use this as a day. And it was one of those days that was a good day to walk and still hunt. So I like that. Get down from the stand, have a gun in your hand, and just move through the woods. And still hunting through the woods. I had a plan to check a few cameras that have been soaking there for almost the whole year. And I get blown up by a few guys walking through my spot early in the morning. My plan was like to sit for the first hour and a half, but like the first 15 minutes I had drivers going through. So again, it was kind of like what a few days later in Quabbin, I'm like, I have to deal with that. So that happens. So that forces me to get up and move too. I didn't want to be there with guys just moving through my funnel that I was watching. I was like, I'm going to kind of try to shadow where they're going, and maybe they're going to push something up a ridge. I do this long, big-ass loop. I start getting a little tired and start going up a steep hill. There's this big ridge in there. And rather than go through the woods, my brain says, go through the woods. You have a better chance of, kicking up a deer or shooting one through here, right? Go through there. Don't be on the freaking trail, you pansy, right? It's like, don't walk up the main road or the trail. Get into the woods. And that is always a thing that I think we're told to do, or you think you should do, but I'm starting to think more and more, walk the logging road or walk even like, if you're in the middle of the woods, a logging road is nothing to a deer. If a highway in the suburbs is nothing to a deer, a major interstate, a dirt road is nothing to a deer, and a log road 100% is nothing to a deer, right? So why do we think that like those are barriers, really? Yeah. We shouldn't be thinking that, I think. So I'm going up this, I'm like, nah, I'm not going to go through the woods. I just beat myself up going through the woods. I'm going to take this nice gravel road that you can't drive a car on, but in this piece, it's, you could drive a car, but there's gates, so you can't, and it's only used for walkers. I'm like, I'm taking that to the top of this peak. I get on there, and I'm beating, dragon feet. I'm sucking pond water. I'm sucking hind teat, as Neil Pendleton likes to say. I'm exhausted. I moved through the woods, like through the thick shit for the last 2 hours. I take this easy way up. I'm going up this gravel road, and I get about halfway up it, and I just see a big body of a deer on the ridge. The ridge that I'm walking up, you can see it going all the way over, and I see this big body. And as I'm walking, like I'm kind of dragging and I'm tired, but I see it, and I see it like in this motion, right? And I'm just like, that saved me. Seeing it there and then not going like this, I'm like readjusting. But as soon as I saw it, not moving
you just stopped.
Yeah. I just saw it and I just didn't move an inch, and I had to hold it. It was uncomfortable, and it ended up being 10 minutes that I was in that position, and it was really getting cramped and stuff. But that is what gave me this opportunity ultimately. But I see that deer, and I stop in whatever uncomfortable position that I was actually in, and I'm like, holy shit! And that looks like a big deer. So luckily, there was a tree that was like 12 inches, like this big, between me and her on the other side of the gravel road, but between, so I had some cover. I wasn't just standing in the middle. The way I stopped, at least there was some cover where her head was. It ended up being a doe, but I didn't know it at the time. I pulled my woodman arms up like this, but trying to like keep that 12 inches of cover that I had, right? So that's in between where her eyes would be.
Yeah.
And I pull that up, and I just lean out. And I'm like, no shit, that deer's bald. Because it was a big doe. And she was bald, but she was just locked in on me. Yeah. She was right in on me. And if I would have, I think if I would have taken any other steps, or I would have stopped somewhere else or whatever, I could have blown it. So I put my woodman down slowly again, keeping the tree between us the whole time. And I'm just standing there just thinking, all right, well, look behind her. Peak rut. It's not peak. It's actually probably after peak at this point. It's like just November 28th, but look behind her. I'm looking up on the ridge behind her. She's about 15 yards below the peak of this ridge, like she was coming down off of it and coming down. But I'm looking up I know there's nothing on this face of the ridge because I could see that. So I'm like, all right, look on the top. And I just start seeing, what could be a leaf flicking or could be a squirrel's tail or something. I see a little bit of movement. So I lift up, again, using that tree because I know where her eyes are now. And they're blocked between that tree. But again, you have to just be, if I would have just gone like, lifted your gun up regularly, she's going to see that.
Yeah. Sure.
You have to use whatever cover you have. Lifted it up, looked up to that, and I just see the tops of, a few tines moving. But there were quite a few tines. I was like, all right, well, that's at least an 8-pointer. But I immediately knew, I was like, holy shit, I see a lot of tines moving. On the other, that deer was behind the peak of the ridge, but his rack was sticking up.
Sticking up, yeah.
Enough that you could just see it's a few movements. And I only saw it for a split second or two. And then I kept the gun up that whole time. Because once you make that big movement, you might as well get the most out of your scope at that point rather than like putting it down and lifting. And every time you're doing that, you're risking it. So I was up. I was holding it as long as I could to watch those tines. It disappeared for a minute, 2 minutes, and then I would see the tines move again. And I was like, no shit. All right, I'm in this. And meanwhile, again, I haven't moved from whatever uncomfortable. It might not have been this position, but whatever that was in, I couldn't move from it because I knew, and now I know that buck is there. I have a chance at a big buck, but that doe is my worry. He doesn't see me, but she's freaking locked onto me, so I can't do anything. Eventually, it got so uncomfortable that I went like this. I got down onto a knee, but I kept this, whatever the front leg was, in the right position, but I had to get down to rest. But I kept that tree between us. I was down there resting for a few minutes until she blew at me. And I was like, oh, fuck, dude, no. You know, now the gig's up. Like, whatever that deer is behind her, I'm never going to see it. She blew at me. When she blew, I stood up, you know, like this, and I lifted. So I was like, all right, she's blowing. I know she's blowing. I'm not going to point it to her. I already know what she is, but I'm going to go back to where that buck was. And in my scope, I see him crest the hill like this. And it's just freaking big-ass neck, giant neck, and the tines going out like outward, like a red stag. Like, he was wide as hell, and his tines were pointing outwards. I was like, oh, my God. And I see him in the scope that way. And I have it right on his throat patch. And then she goes, again. And he turns and looks at her when he does that. And when he does that, I know at that point, all right, 2 blows. And all I can see are his neck. His chest isn't up, whatever. I have to shoot now. It's my only chance. So I drop it right onto his neck, right in the profile, right in the middle. Shoot. I shoot. Smoke. I don't see anything. I see the doe take off, but I don't see anything from where that buck was. And my stupid ass was like, that deer either flopped and is dead there, or he's gone. Because I couldn't see anything. So I was like, take your phone out, get a reaction video for your dumbass video.
Celebrations.
Yeah, just film this, because you weren't able to film, like, when you're bow hunting, you've got your camera on a tree and it's all stationary. When I'm moving through, I can't film myself, but I shouldn't even be giving a shit about filming in that 100%. Moment. And I start filming myself, like, oh my God, I just shot at a big buck, probably the biggest buck of my life. I don't know what it is. Like, why was I doing that? Because while I was doing that, then I saw the white belly, and I saw he was kicking and thrashing around, and I'm like, holy shit! Now he's on my side of the ridge somehow, and I'm filming myself going, oh, he's doing his death kick. You fucking dumbass, dude. Like, I'm just watching him, like, do what I've seen a bunch of deer do and die right away, but sometimes it doesn't happen, right? So he's doing his death kick, and I go, I think he just died right there. And as I'm still filming, then I see him get up, but only with his hind legs. You know, his front legs look paralyzed, and he's pushing himself with his hind legs across the ridge now. But it looks like he's paralyzed from the front, like I would have shot him through the shoulders and broke his shoulders, or I shot him in the spine and he was paralyzed. So then I'm like, I shut the phone off, throw it on the ground, and I've got all my reloads in different pockets. Again, I've been bow hunting, and I've been bow hunting mode all season. Yeah. First season, you know, with gun, and I, like you, I'm a felon. Just kidding. But I like to shoot my muzzleloader. I've never owned a shotgun, so I love bringing the Woodman out and hunting with that. And I always told myself, I'm only going to need one shot. Dude, I had shit in every different pocket. I had my Big Woods Bucks fanny pack going around my waist, but high. So it's like blocking
big hot
these
mess is what you
here.
were.
I couldn't get into like these pockets, you know. So it's just a friggin' mess at that point. I put my phone down. I see him going across. He's giving me these beautiful broadside shots, dude. He's pushing himself across this ridge. Huge body on it, and I didn't realize it until way later. But it's the giant. He's probably a 250-pound buck. He's like 10 years old. But 2 years ago, I had him when he was 8 years old and like 160-inch 9-pointer. He was a massive deer, and it ends up being this deer. I didn't realize it at the time, which it makes it even it hurt more now. But I see him going across the ridge, and most of the time I can reload that muzzleloader fast, 25 seconds.
Yeah, when you haven't just shot
20
a
seconds.
buck that's running away from you.
It's done, but I couldn't get into my pockets. I had to take that. First of all, I had the Big Woods Bucks fanny pack plus a muff because it was so cold that day. I had a muff with hand warmers in there, so 2 straps going around. De-strap that one, throw that off. De-strap the muff, throw it off. Finally, I can get into my pockets. I got my freaking powder in, and I'm watching him push himself across. I get my powder in, and I'm just like, I can't find my bullets. I'm like, God damn it. As the powder's in there, I can't find my bullets. And I stand up again. I put my muzzleloader between my knees like this so that I could find my bullets, because I had, for some reason, I needed both my hands because I needed them to work at the same time, right? Because I was frantic at this point.
Yeah, of course.
Trying to find
mode.
So I'm like using both my hands. Get into here. So I had my muzzleloader like this. It tips over and all the powder comes out. So the powder pours out of the end of the barrel. So now I got to reload the powder, then go through that whole shit again. Meanwhile, this buck has died 5 times in front of me. He pushed himself across, and then he was silent, just laying there again. And as I'm trying to reload, I'm like, all right, well, maybe he's dead now. I'm still trying to find all my shit, though. And then he arises from the dead again and pushes himself that way. And then it's like, all right, well, that was his final death, because I just see him laying there. And it's just over and over this is happening. Finally, I get my muzzleloader reloaded. He gets up again from his bed, and he rises over the hill. And when I finally got the cap in, the primer in and loaded, all I saw were the tines again descending over the hill. And I was like, what the fuck just happened? It was just a whirlwind, dude. I searched all day. The blood trail was only 75 yards. There was tons of blood where I first shot him. I realized that was a long story, but that had to get out. I couldn't find him that day. I went back the next day. I grid searched. I couldn't find anything. I had no idea what happened to him. Eventually, just a few days ago, somebody sent me a picture and said, and it was him shed, and he had a bullet hole right in the middle of his neck. He's alive. He shed his antlers already. He's alive. So that buck is completely fine. But all of that, I say, I learned shit again there, and that was part of me rethinking all this stuff where it's like, why did I even want to get my reaction right there? That's so stupid. It's just so dumb. What's the point of that? To make the video a little bit better that I'm going to put out that I didn't even get the kill shot on? What is the point of that? Don't ever think about that and just reload immediately, especially if you have a muzzleloader and you have a buck like that of that caliber. And if I would have known it was the buck that I was obsessed with 2 years before, that I had got 0 pictures of last year.
God, yeah.
Last year I got no pictures of this buck, and I was like, what happened to that deer? This year, 0 pictures of him, so I was like, that deer's just one of those that just disappeared. But he was just on the other side of a 800-acre forest, not even a huge piece. He just stayed there and never came back. And when I go back and think about the only experience I had with that buck, he only gave me his neck that day too, but I was bow hunting. But this buck is extremely smart, and the guy who ended up sending me pictures of him shed goes, I can't believe you even got a shot at him, because this deer is 10 years old. I've had him on camera for years. He could kill him, but doesn't, because he says he has so many pictures, thousands of pictures of this deer, and he's like a family member to him or something, this guy says. So he goes, no one's ever had even shot on that deer, so I give you credit for shooting him, but he's really freaking smart. And then when I thought back on it, I'm like, the only time that year that I hunted him, when he was huge, and he was 100 in that 150s to 160s, he was a monster. And that year I rattled when I got into my stand. The first time hunting that stand, I knew he was there too, because he was on camera at 3 o'clock in the morning on a cell cam. So that's why I went to that stand. I knew he was in the area. I rattled at 7:30 in the morning. Immediately when I rattled, 3 bucks came off the hill. 2 of them nice ones, a 7 and an 8. They fought in front of me, a nice battle. And I'm just like, damn, where's this big one? Spikehorn comes down off the hill and watches them. He's kind of walking around the bigger ones fighting. The whole time I'm going, where's this big one? I know he's got to be here. And I look behind, and he was slowly making his way in like this. He knew that me rattling, he knew all the bucks that were in that area. He knew they were up on the hill there. He saw them come down and fight. He wasn't fooled. He knew my rattle, and then he was keeping an eye on where I was down there. There's no bucks down there fighting. He fucking knew. And the way he walked in, he was down in a ditch, and all I could see was his rack and his neck. And with a bow, he was at 35 yards. With a bow, obviously I have zero shot gun. I could take that. He walked, stood behind a pine tree. Like you said, the tines disappeared after a while. Like, he was behind this giant pine tree for 30 minutes where I would only see a tine come out every once in a while because he was standing there pegged knowing where I was.
Yeah, you
and
knew
I
where
would
the
just see a
sound came
tine
from.
move every once in a while, and I was like, dude, did he just disappear? Nah, he was there. And the last thing I saw him was keeping that big pine tree between me and him and walking up the hill and over it and never to be seen again. And that was the last time I saw him in person. And he never came back to that whole side of the forest, that whole area where he was the entire year, where he was just on camera after camera after camera. Because of the rattling and him picking, he just knew. He never went back there. But it was just kind of cool that he only gave me his neck then. Knowing he was so smart, he was just bounced to the other side of the forest. And then even in the time that I was able to get a shot off on him, he only gave me his neck that time too. And he's still friggin' alive, so I could get him next year. But he's gonna be 11, and his antlers have gone way down. But it was a beautiful buck. But I learned all that shit, and then that next day, while I'm in, you just killed your deer, and Chris and I go back to the Quabbin hunt. Dan's hunting in New Hampshire. We get text about your deer next, so let's tell that.
Yeah, so we were all fired up about Kevin getting his deer, and that night I was gonna go. Me and my buddy had kind of had a plan to. I was gonna go down to Mass, and we were gonna like bow hunt the suburban area, and I just wanted to shoot a couple does, and he wasn't able to do that. And I was kind of, the more I was thinking about it, like the weather was good and the wind was good and everything. I mean, like you guys were saying, it was cold, and I'm like, all right, this is good. And at the beginning of this year, I gotta give some credit to Neil. I texted him afterwards telling him this because Neil is all about like writing his goals down and everything. And he said that 2 years ago, and I didn't do it last year. And he was making a thing about it this year. He's like, you gotta write them down, like physically write down your goals. And I did that this year. I wrote my goals down, and then the next day I went back and changed it because I wanted to shoot my biggest racked buck this year. And I was like, that's such like a hard thing to do. I was like, that's almost like it's like a stupid goal because you're just setting yourself up for failure. But I went back and changed it the next day. I was like, no, that's what I want this year. And I don't know that this is because I've never like gotten any of my deer scored or anything like that. But I think it might be anyways. But nonetheless, that night before, I was like, you know what? I'm going to go because I didn't have a gun tag in New Hampshire. And like typically if it's between like bow hunting in New Hampshire, gun hunting in Mass, I'll go gun hunt in Mass. But I was like, no. I was like, I want to shoot a big buck today. And I was like, I think I have a better chance of doing that with my bow in New Hampshire, believe it or not. So that's why I made this decision. This was a spot I had not hunted all season. I had bought at Huntstock. I met your buddy Chad, the Backyard Sense, and he doesn't know me. I know him now. Kevin was like, you got to get this stuff. So I bought some of the stuff from him at Huntstock, and I bought like the pre-orbital gland stuff, and I listened to a couple of his podcasts, and I listened to one of them twice because I was like, there's a lot of good info here. And
Tons of info on his, yeah.
Yes, and I wanted to really figure that stuff out. So I went in this spot. This is my third year running cameras in here, and I've hunted it a little bit. I've never actually seen a deer here, but last year I had some big bucks randomly show up at the very end of November here. It's a spot that holds does, and I remember one of the takeaways from that podcast with Chad. He's like, oh, a lot of guys complain that they're doing the scrape and everything like that and spraying the stuff, and they're only getting does, and like they think it's a bad thing, but that's a really good thing.
Yeah.
So that's what I did. I went out there in July. This is a community scrape. It was I found what I thought was a community scrape like 3 years ago, put a camera on it, confirmed that it was over the course of a year. Then last year, I realized like, okay, this is a good community, ran another camera on it, and I was like, all right, this spot's good towards the end of the season. I think the does just get hot late here because I just got like $2 that just randomly showed up, that I didn't have all year. So I was thinking about that, and I'm like, the wind's good, and I haven't hunted there, and I was like, it's a huge piece of woods though. It's a huge piece of woods, and then there's like a road, and then there's another huge piece of woods, and there's a road, and these are just like back roads. These are nothing, and then it's another huge piece of woods. So it's just like this chain of like huge pieces of woods, and I'm like, ah, man, like it's tough hunting the big woods with your bow because you feel so hopeless, like it's hard
like
enough.
Dust.
I know,
friggin',
but I'm like, this is like, this is it. Like, I want to hunt this spot. Like, this is my goal. I'm gonna go in here. Like, the conditions are right, and I don't know. It was just, that was it, and went in there super early. It was super cold. Picked a tree out in the dark. It was the tree I had actually sat before, but I didn't really know where I was going because I really wanted to shoot that scrape, and I've never actually been able to shoot that scrape before. Picked a tree out in the dark, got up, and I wasn't even sure where the scrape was, but I was like, whatever, I'm sticking it out. And I made it a point. I was like, I'm sitting till 10 no matter what, because I know I'm like really close to where I know a bunch of does bed. So I was like, I'm gonna sit till 10 because I come in here late. Like, no matter what, I'm sitting till at least 10. And there was nothing going on. Like, there wasn't even a squirrel moving. It was just one of those mornings where it's dead and it's quiet, but like, it's just so cold, and I'm like, I want to hear him from far away, and I'm just kind of losing faith, and whatever. It's like 9:20, and I'm like, I should just get down and go back and whatever. Then I was like, no, I'm sitting till 10. Like, this is the plan. Like, this is how the spots should work.
I got text that started at 10:05 that day, so.
Yeah, oh, no
From
shit,
you.
huh? No shit.
Is that what time it was?
10:05.
So it was it was like 9:30 almost.
Fuck
on the
yes
dot.
was the first text.
That's cool. I love going back and looking at those texts.
Yeah, oh, yeah,
it's
I do
when
too.
you're like just pure emotion,
Yeah.
So it was 9:30. I hear something behind me, and I was like, "What the fuck is that?" I was like, "Is that a squirrel?" Then I'm like, nope, that is a deer. Like, you can, squirrels fool you all the time. And I've had times where deer end up being squirrels, but when you all of a sudden like hear a deer, you're like,
that's what it is.
It's like, that's not a squirrel. There's nothing erratic to it. It's just
You
that
can eliminate
steady.
a squirrel.
Sometimes you think it's a deer, but then there's times it's a deer.
Exactly. And this was
you
that.
can't eliminate deer from squirrel, but you can eliminate squirrel from deer. You're like, nope, that's not a squirrel.
Yep. And I was like, oh shit, that's a deer. And so I grabbed my bow, like, get ready, and I'm like, all right. I'm like, oh, it's definitely a deer. Then I like see it coming. I'm like, holy shit, this is gonna end up in my lap. And then I see like antlers, and I was like, oh fuck yeah, it's a buck. And I'm looking, it gets a little bit closer, and I just see like it's got a lot of antler on its head. And I was like, oh yes, like this is a shooter. And I like when it happens quick, man, because when it takes too much time, you just like, you start to come unraveled, you start shaking, like you get to talk yourself through it. Like the last
100%, yeah.
The last couple of years, especially with a bow, I've just like I've always looked at those people that are just like killers, and they just go into like this predator mode, when it's like game time. Like and Neil. Yeah, I've talked to Neil about this, and this was like, especially when it happens quick, like I do that, and it's just like those summer reps with your bow in the backyard. This is where that comes into play, because it becomes second nature, And this deer came in, and I was like, I go to grab my rangefinder, and I'm like, oh, I don't even need my rangefinder. Like, he is going to be in my lap. He is going, just not running, not walking slow, just going steady, straight for this scrape. And I'm like, this is 20-yard pin. Definitely 20-yard pin. And it's just for all the times where like you gotta like pull it off or this happens or that happens. It just everything just worked perfect. And it's easy to sit here and say, like, I know exactly why that deer was there that time of year. Like I sat there for a very specific reason and it 100% worked. But how many times, every time I go in the woods, I do that. You know, like I sit a spot for a very particular reason. And today was one of the days where it just happens.
That's why they're so sweet.
Yes.
When it finally happens after a million tries.
And even today, I just like it just blows my mind. It's the first big woods deer that I've shot with my bow. I've shot a few with my rifle and like real big pieces of woods, but it just with the bow, I'm just like, holy shit! Like really, to this day, I'm like that fucking happened, you know? And he comes by and like I didn't know what buck he was. I had no idea. I said a lot of mass. And he was just going through some thick stuff. I draw back and he comes out into like this kind of like this little bit of a clearing, and he hit my boot trail because I was looking for a tree in the dark. And as soon as he hit my boot trail, he stopped. And like, I don't know if he looked at me or whatever, but going into just that like predator mode, not like the predator, how you got your muzzleloader thing going. But no, just going to the predator mode. Like I know. I never look at a buck's antlers. Like I just don't. I determine if they're like is this a shooter or not, and then that's it. Like just straight body. Like I didn't even look at his
for
head.
Anybody watching this,
Oh hell yeah.
Identify if you're gonna shoot him or not, and then don't look again.
Never look at the antlers after that. And I knew without a doubt. I just saw enough antler coming off his head. I knew it was a shooter. Draw back and didn't have to stop him. He's at 20. It ended up being 23 yards. I'm looking at my pin and there's just so much shit in the way. He stopped like just short of where I needed him to, and I'm like, no fucking way. And he's like, I think he's looking at me. I don't know if he was, but in my head he was looking at me, and I'm like, I have to make this work. But in a saddle, you can crouch with your knees against the tree and you don't have to hold that weight in your legs. It's like one of the best parts about a saddle. So you can crouch down like a foot. You don't make much movement and you don't have to hold your body weight when you do that. So I did, and I keep going lower, 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 and like all the brush is starting to come up. And then like I finally get my pin where there's like a branch going right across like his back strap basically. And then it's just everything below there. And I put my pin and I'm like, oh, it's 20 yards. I'm like thinking all this shit happened. This is like
gonna hit that.
It's like 3 or 4 seconds, but I'm like, it's a short enough shot that my arrow shouldn't arc enough where it's gonna hit that branch. And I'm like, this is it. Like, and I love when you have to shoot through a little hole because you have to pick a spot. Like, you're not going to shoot at brush, you know?
Right.
And I'm like, I'm either hitting that branch or I'm going to fucking 10 ring him. And I did. I just settled the pin, took my time, let it go. And it was so cold. My arrow, like, bounced. Like, it went through him. I saw my luminoc, but it didn't, like, bury into the ground. It was, like, laying on the ground. He takes off like an absolute bat out of hell. I hear him running, and he's going further than, like, I would want to hear him go. And then I hear like crashing, then nothing. And I'm like, oh my God, I think he went down. But I didn't, you don't know, you know?
No, of course
and,
you don't, right,
because he had probably ran like 120 yards.
Right,
and I'm
just
like,
not heard him anymore.
Yep.
You could have been
and
still
I'm
going.
like freaking the fuck out because I'm like, this might have been the biggest buck I've ever shot. I don't know. And I'm like, I don't know if I hit him. Like, I'm pretty sure I hit him, you know? And I'm like, I'm looking quick. I'm like, I don't see any brush moving. Like, I don't think I hit that branch. I'm like, I had to have smoked him. Like, I don't know though. So I call my dad from the stand. Every time I shoot a deer, like I call my dad right away. And I'm like, he's with my mom. And my mom's like, oh, congratulations. We're like, shut up. Like,
no,
like,
jinx
no,
it.
we're not even remotely
You
at that
jinx.
point yet, you know? So I go to start getting down. I still get like the muffs over my boot. I wear like those Arctic Shield like boot warmers. I'm getting there. It's fetched up in the tree, and I'm like, dude, you are gonna kill yourself getting out of the tree. Like, relax. Just chill for like 2 minutes. So I'm like trying to gain my composure and everything. I get down. I go over to my arrow. I am freaking out. Like, I am so nervous. I have no idea if this deer went down.
When did you send the F yes, holy shit, I just shot my biggest buck? While you were in the stand or after you got down and figured stuff out?
Is that
just for the story?
Oh, man. I don't even know.
Well, you know what's funny is...
It's probably when I found my arrow.
Down. Oh, you said and he's down, so probably...
That was later, though, because...
That was 10:06, yeah.
I was driving back from the taxidermist when he sent the text that said... fuck yes or F yes.
Yeah.
Were those all at the same time?
And so
for me it was 10:05.
No, so for me
10:06.
Mine, the first one that you said that said F yes. I'm driving and my phone's here, and I saw it, and I thought you were responding to him. I thought he shot a deer. Now he hadn't shot his deer yet.
Yeah.
And so I'm trying as I'm driving. I'm trying to look. I'm like, fuck. Did I thought you were saying yes? Fuck yes to him. That he said he shot a deer. I'm like, shit. Did I miss a text? Did Pat shoot a deer? And I'm like rolling through, and then your other text dude came through.
And then Kevin says, "Dude, WTF, dude, we're getting together, boys, celebrating maybe this weekend or someday. Yes, congrats, can't wait to see him." And I said at the same time, "For real, hell yes, dude. Massachusetts, I need pictures and reaction video." And then you said, five minutes passed, and you didn't say anything, and you said, "OMG." Oh my God, New Hampshire. And then Kevin, dude, that's incredible. Be careful, don't fall out of your tree.
I think you got them in a weird order then.
Maybe, yeah. And I said, how big, dude? And you said, you'll have to wait.
Yeah, because I didn't have much service. So actually, maybe they were just getting sent out in a weird order. But I get down, I go get my arrow, and it's just covered in blood. And it's got bubbles in the blood. And I'm like, well, this is as good as it gets. There's like hair on the ground. I'm like, okay. So I'm like, I saw where he ran. I was like, I'm going to follow the blood trail for like 20 yards and then decide what I want to do. And there's like, not much, just a couple specks, and then it's like, okay, that's a lot of blood. Then a lot of blood. And then I just see blood like all over the trees. And I'm like, oh, I'm going after him right now. Like this is, he's down. He has to be down. I had to have heard him crash. And it was just one of those blood trails where you just like steady walk, he was spraying it. I ended up hitting him just above the heart, double lung, just put a huge hole in him. And I walked up on him, and I was like, oh, man, like he's bigger than I thought, And
that's cool. That's awesome.
Yeah, again, I don't know if he's my biggest one. He might be. But, yeah, it was just one of those. It was so cool, and I was so blown away that it happened, and it happened like in that area and that time, and it was so cool. Like I went back home, got my dogs. It was a very long drag out of there. It was like over a mile to get them out of there. Went back, got my dogs, got my deer cart, went in there, and just like made the whole like day of it.
Yeah, oh yeah, that's nice when you shoot them in the morning.
Oh, shooting in the morning is the best.
It's just the best.
I laid on the ground. I have a picture on my phone because I just like laid on my ground next to that deer, and it was just so cool. I'm just like looking up at the sky, and I'm like, just
see, that's
so
the one thing
for everything.
I was thinking about this the other day because I was listening to a different podcast. I'm trying to think of who it was. I was listening to one when I was going up to Maine, and that was one of the things they were talking about, taking the whole moment. And that was the one thing I regretted a little bit about the deer. I felt a little rushed there.
When you're with other people, that happens.
Yeah, like I almost felt like, okay, we got to get this out. Like, we took a little video, we took little pictures, but yeah, I wish I had time to just kind of spend a little time and just with the deer, not rush to gut it, not rush to drag it up.
The 4 p.m. clock.
Well, that was the big thing.
Too, yeah.
Well, that was the big thing. In my head, I'm like, okay, wow, we got time. We're going to get this out on time by 4 if we just, because we weren't far from the truck. But it is cool when you can kind of just really take it all in and just like, that's a huge part of it. I was just listening to some podcast about that. I forget who it was, but
it was cool. I actually had shit to do for work that day, and I just like threw it out the window. I was like, I'm gonna make a whole day of this. Brought my dogs back to go recover it, and I just hauled it out, and just my one of my best friends came up just to see it. It was so cool. My parents came over. You know, we had a few beers, had a couple of shots. Just just sitting on the driveway, just staring at it and everything. And it was such a
So
cool day.
awesome.
And I was like, so we were freaking out, and it's like. Yeah, I'm like, oh my God, Kevin, I can't believe we both shot huge bucks in like 24 hours.
About doing a podcast.
And like I think I was dragging my deer out, and I get a text from like you, because I didn't have much service there either.
Yeah, I finally got a picture of your buck at 10:57.
Okay, so but you had texted me when I was in there, and I wasn't getting text, so I don't know what time I got your text, Pat, but as I was dragging my deer out, I get a text, and you're like, dude, I just shot a huge buck. And I was like,
he said, I just shot an
I was
absolute
like,
monster,
no.
is what he said. I think.
That's what it was. I just
'Cause
shot an
I'm like,
absolute
again,
monster.
my phone goes off. I'm still driving home from Connecticut. And the fucking phone goes off again, and he's got.
And I was like, no way. Like, he's fucking with us. He's got to be fucking with us. Then, yeah.
I'm just looking at the text again. You send the picture. I'm like, yes, dude, that is a slammer, Kevin. Holy shit, he's perfect. There's not a deduction on that. That's awesome, dude. Nice job. Holy crap. And I'm like, congrats, man. Enjoy it. And then you send a better picture. I get that at 12:05 of you with him.
Okay.
And then thanks, guys. I'm going to soak this one in. Nice pic, says Kevin. Are you alone? Dan, yeah. And then the next one was, I just shot an absolute monster. You said, yeah, at like 12:24, and then at 1:13, I just shot an absolute monster. Oh my God, is he down? No way. From Kevin. You, dude, no fucking way. What? Down? I'm like, yes, down in front of me. So the whole, like, the whole thing of, like, not knowing if it's your biggest one or not, it's like, it's so irrelevant, because I think I figured that out with this deer. Like, this deer, when he came out of the trees and everything, I'll tell that story, but he just looked like he was a bigger deer, you know, than these are my two biggest right here. And to me, it was just, he seemed way bigger than them. He might not actually score
so
as
high.
much.
His beams just like...
His beams just rose to the sky, and they were so thick. He had short tines, but...
That was like mine. He's just it's
like,
an 8-pointer. An 8-pointer can only score so much, but he's just got I mean, you saw him. He's got the mass just goes right through his tines. His tines are really tall, and they're like curling at the top.
Yep.
He's just like a picture perfect, like big heavy beamed 8-pointer, you know?
Yeah.
And that was like, you sent me the picture of yours, and I was like, dude, no way.
Dude,
I'm like,
friggin'
it'd be
hog.
one thing to shoot, like, for us to again, like,
Just shoot
we're
3
like
deer.
you know, we talk every day during hunting season, like the three of us. And to shoot 3 deer in 24 hours would be really amazing. To shoot 3 big bucks in 24 hours, I was just like, this
At
is
least
ridiculous.
all 5 years old, I would say.
Yeah. Mine I know was 5.
But it just
anyways.
goes to show you, like friggin' measuring, like it gets me back to, like, the trackers just want to kill a big-bodied deer, right?
Yep.
The trackers don't give a shit if it's like 110-inch deer that's 250 pounds.
Yeah.
Doesn't matter. And this kind of brought that into full perspective for me a little bit, where it's just like, I've never been like an antler hunter or whatever. Yeah, I do want to shoot a bigger rack deer. I want to aspire to shoot I want a older deer that has a big rack. Yeah. I don't just want to shoot a 10-year-old if he's 110, you know. There's different things for everybody, but for me, I would like to shoot an older one that also has a big rack. That's why I passed one that had 130-inch rack that might have been a 3-year-old this year, but he had great potential. I wanted to see what he could possibly get to. Yeah. But in my head, like, that's what I want to do. And then when this deer, I'll back it up. After you shot yours,
You went back to the same area.
Was chasing, was with a group of 2 or 3 does, but there was at least a hot doe there.
Yeah.
Because he was naturally
And I kept saying to you guys, I was like, go up back on that hill.
Yeah.
There's so much buck sign up
Chris
there.
is like, I don't know. Like, I don't know if we go back to the same spot or not, or where do I go? I'm like, dude, let's go there. Let's go to that same general area anyway.
Somewhere near there.
Chris, you know where you guys have been. I'm going to go down here, I said. And I was just looking at, and I literally, Onyx helped me with this big time.
Did you see the transition?
I pulled up Onyx. I pulled up their leaf off imagery, which is huge in this area where you've never been. I've never been here. I'm only going to be here for 2 days to hunt. So And that first day when I went in there blind and these guys had scouted, I didn't. That first day when I went in there, the point that I wanted to get to was good. Using leaf-off imagery, it was fine. It was pretty open there, so I could get there. But me trying to get in there in the dark in the morning was hell, dude. I was breaking. I broke thousands of those like dry ass pines, just going like this and getting through the pines. Right? You have to just do that to get through them. And I mean, they're only this far apart, all those pines. I had to do that quite a bit on the way in. I was like, man, this fucking sucks. This is why you got to scout before. Just know your entryway to get in. Yeah. So that night after you killed yours, and I know now there's hot doe over there, and also you guys said, I think Chris said that wasn't the big one.
No, right.
You guys had jumped in that area when you scouted and all that. Just all of those, that's getting put together. I'm like, all right, I'm going to go here. But I want to make sure that I'm not going to see another hunter. I was so sick of that first day just bouncing around. And I was like, I'm bringing in a climber. I'm going to be up in a tree. I'm not going through that same thing I did the first day. So I brought my climber in, and I'm going to go to this giant funnel. And it was far enough away and down some steep stuff and around some stuff that I was like, this is secluded enough that if I get here, if I can get there and get up into a tree, I'm sitting all day, and I'm going to be happy that I'm just sitting and bouncing around and feeling like a fish out of water. I'm going to be in a big funnel in a place where there's a lot of hunters around that might be moving stuff around, plus there's a hot doe, but I just want to be able to see a long ways and shoot a long ways. And so that's what I did. I just picked out a big funnel feature. The leaf-off imagery showed me it was going to be open enough, so I could see that there was going to be a bunch of pines here, but I was right on the edge of the wall of where those pines were, and I wanted that.
Yeah, that's similar to where I was too.
I basically picked out a tree, dude. And that morning, I was really excited to get in there. We got there super early. They opened the gates at like 4:45 or something. They opened it a little bit early, and let us all go in. So we got up there, and I got into my spot real friggin' early. I was in there at like 45 minutes before legal shooting, and I climbed up. I could even see enough that I was like, yeah, this spot looks like what I wanted it to be, and what I was hoping it was going to be from on. Actually, it looks like it. I could see it enough that it was open, and I was like, this is going to be sweet. Screw in my camera arm, I get everything ready for the hunt, and I'm like, this is awesome. I pull out my gun to put my cap in. I didn't have, it's dark, so I didn't have my primer in until then. I go to reach for my primers.
Oh, my God, I completely forgot about this.
I got this orange vest.
Oh, my God, I completely forgot about this.
Orange vest over my shit, because you have to during gun season, and it has 4 places for, like, shotgun shells, right? But they fit nice, all my tubes. I got fucking powder tube, all my bullets, and my primers. And I reach down to go for where the primers are, and I'm like, huh? I look at it I'm like, please tell me. I look down, there's only 3 tubes. My primer tube was not there. So I was dude, I was feeling so good. I was all settled into my spot. I was just ready for the day just to be chilling there all day in my stand, and I don't have primers. Now panic is setting in. The worst feeling you can imagine in your stomach is setting in, dude, and I'm just like, oh, I knew it. I'm like, they're not there. I looked, but I knew they were there. They're not there. So I immediately go, well, the only thing I can do now is unscrew all this shit, take my camera off, unscrew it, pack it all back up, climb back down, and get back to my truck and hope that they're still in there and I forgot to put them in my vest. Because if I did put them in my vest and they're not there anymore, chances are they fell out on the way in somehow.
Right.
And I'll never find those, ever. So I was like, my whole hunt's going to be screwed, whatever. Like, it was a terrible feeling.
Dude, I'll tell you right now, I swear to God, honest truth, Chris texted me that, and I was with my wife, and I was telling my wife, I'm like, I feel like I'm going to vomit. I said, I feel like I want to vomit. I said, I feel so sick for Pat right now because I can't even imagine what he's going through. Because he told me you were going back to the truck and you couldn't find him. I'm like, oh my God. I'm like, hun, he just went all the way out there. He can't even hunt now. He's going to have to go find a store.
I was in deep.
I go, well, not even that, but I'm thinking, you can't even hunt. Who are you going to get him from? I'm like, dude, I was sick to my stomach
in
for
my
you.
head, I was already playing scenarios. I'm like, all right, whatever. If I can't hunt, okay, that's just the way the world is.
I know, but I'm
going to push for Chris and do all this, but I was still just like, damn, because I was so jacked up. You got your deer. And I was like, finally, I'm just gonna sitting, and I'm gonna I don't want to be bouncing around. Like I was so excited for that next day.
And you had just had that bad luck thing happen 2 days before.
Exactly.
And that's why I was so sick about it, because I'm like, I felt so bad.
That's why I put them all. I was like, after that happened, I'm like, these motherfucking things need to be in a place that I know they're gonna be. And I was like, oh, my vest. If you lift this little flap up, there's 4 little things right there. That's where I know they'll be. So I was like, I did that. I put them there and not inside my zipped pockets to solve that first issue.
Yeah.
And so I, like a freaking, dude, it was chaotic. I get down to the bottom of my tree, and now it's a half hour before shooting light when I get to the bottom of my tree after packing everything back up. I leave everything there, my stand, everything, except for my gun. I bring that with me, and I run out of the woods. And I'm looking at my OnX. It's still dark, so I'm trying to get up the same trail kind of that I came in, because I knew that was the easiest path. I'm looking at that and running out of the woods. And I get close. Finally, I get close to the road, and I see that there's a truck parked near where my truck is, but not where mine is. I knew where that was, but it was near there, and there were 3 headlamps on there. And I see them all turn and look at what's going on in the woods, because I must have looked like an idiot, just running through and this headlight bobbing up and down, and I'm freaking running, making a racket, and but I'm desperate, dude. I'm just I really need to get to my truck and just see if they're there. And I get out, and I have to go by these guys with their headlamps on, and I turn mine off, and I'm just out of breath and shit, and I'm like, hey guys, I knew I had to say something. I'm like, I'm an idiot. I got all the way into my spot super early. I realized I didn't have any primers. I'm like, none of you guys are muzzleloader hunters or anything, are you? You have any couple primers in case I can't find them in my truck? They're like, no, we're not. And one guy goes, is that Pekka yet? I'm just I'm like, what the fuck? And it's just, the guy's like, oh, I'm a huge fan of your podcast, dude. And he starts talking to me about that. And I'm in this moment where I'm just
I need to get out of here.
I'm like, dude, thanks for being a fan of my podcast. And I probably look like an idiot right now, but I just got to get to my truck and see if my primers are in there. Yeah. I just can't believe that somebody was
in the dark.
It's still so weird that people recognize me from this stupid thing. But I get to my truck. I look inside first to see if it was where, I kept my vest and all my stuff in my kid's seat, his car seat. That's where I like to put all my important stuff is in there. When he's not in there, it's this nice, I put my stuff in there. I look in there, it wasn't in there. I look around the car, it's not around the car. So then I start going around and kicking up leaves around the car, and my freaking tube is there.
Oh, no shit.
Right next to where my kid's car seat was. It was there under a leaf. And I was like, oh my, it was the holy grail, dude.
I picked
that thing up, and I'm just like, oh, yes. You've got to be kidding me, dude. So I had it, and at this point, it was 6:15. I got it all the way out of there, up and over the ridge, in 15 minutes from being at the bottom of my stand. And it was far. And I still don't know exactly how far, but then I grabbed it, ran all the way back. I got through the woods again, sweating balls, dude. The worst sweating ever. But I got to the tree at 6:29. There was still a minute before legal shooting. The way I got there, and I climbed up, and I just remember looking at my clock and going, I freaking made it. And it was at legal shooting. When I looked at my clock, it was legal. And I was like, I just made a racket coming in, whatever. I might have blown the first 20 minutes of this morning, but I'm hunting now. Yeah. And then all this shit happened, and your deer and all this text and stuff was happening that day, and I was just like, anything that happened today is gonna be fine. It's gonna be great, whatever. I see no action at all really, and then a bear at 9:30 goes by. I see a bear
it's a nice big funnel, just like I would hoped it was going to be for Monax. And you shoot your deer. We go through all that, and then I finally hear my first distinct, like, this is a deer coming through. It was 2 does, but I didn't know. I just heard them. Flipped my camera on, turned it onto the jack pines where I heard the things coming. I see 2 does bust out of them. They stop. They're kind of like panting a little bit. Stop, look behind them, and I'm just thinking, oh, dude, please be like a buck behind those does. And then I see this freaking buck just break that jack pine wall. High white rack, a lot of mass to him. Just a big white rack comes right through, neck down, right on him, dude. And they turn and come towards this other little tiny wall of jack pines. You guys will see in the footage. They bust through there. You see him going through, like, moving his head like this to get his rack away from things, and bust out of the jack pines right there, and they're right under my stand now, like 25 yards. He makes a tiny, like, he stopped for a tiny second, and I shot. When you look at the footage, he was still kind of moving, but he was like 25 yards right there, shot. And then everything kicks in where I'm immediately thinking about 2
Reload.
days earlier.
Yeah.
Fucking focus on that deer.
Yeah.
Do not let him get out of your eyesight and reload. Don't think about anything else. Because when they came through those jack pines, and I saw him first bust out, I saw he was in. I checked my camera. He was in frame. Then I saw the does leave the frame, so I knew, like, where they left. And when he came through there too and left, I was like, I just nudged my camera arm like that, and it went like this, over into frame. But I just did that quick, and then knew I had to shoot. And I got the shot right in frame perfectly, and but I didn't touch it after that. After I got the shot, I see him. He comes down under my stand. I'm looking to see if I see any, like, blood or anything coming out. I'm looking at it. He's right there, and I'm like, I don't see any blood. Like, I know I hit him because he mule kicked. I don't see any blood, and I'm watching him, and he goes up, and he's going up this ridge, and he just beds down like this. So I'm watching. Now I'm turning around in my climber, sitting on my arm, sitting on it, looking at him up here, bedded down, and I got all my shit, all those things lined up there, right, and then good reload perfectly, and reloading in 30 seconds like I normally do, and he stands up out of the bed wobbly, but it's kind of like the same thing that happened a few days before. He didn't just die; he bedded down. and watched him. But he wasn't doing good, and as I'm reloading, I hear around me as the doe's down there, and I see him stand up, and I got the reload, and right when he stood up, I shot him again. He just bedded back. He didn't just, like, die again and thrash. After I shot him the second time, he bedded down again, and then it was like 2 seconds he was upside down thrashing. But I'm just watching him to make sure, and I reloaded again, even while he's doing that. Like, I'm just in automatic reload mode now. And just watching him, but he died, and he was there. I kept my eye on him probably 2 minutes after he stopped moving, even though I was all reloaded again. I was ready to shoot him again if he got up. Yeah. He was dead, and dude, it was just such an awesome. It was the first deer I've ever shot that was right on does, and
it is when you know they're dead. There's no, like, even you had a little bit of that, like,
yeah,
it's like. Oh my God! When you know they're dead, there it's like such a good feeling. There's no stress.
And Chris, like you said, he was immediately. He's like, "Tell me that was you," because he was asking me a few times earlier that day. Was that you? I'm like, no. Was that you? No, because there was some shooting going on.
Yeah.
And I'm like, no, but he's like, that one had to have been you. And when I texted him, absolute monster. Same thing I texted you guys. He's like, no way. You serious? I'm like, yeah, dead. He goes, can I come down? I'm like, yeah. And he was like, immediately packs up his hunt, just wants to come and help. And he was, oh my God, getting that deer out of there.
I was going to ask.
We either could have dragged him straight uphill, but I went down some crazy steep shit to get down into there. Going uphill was going to be a huge pain in the ass. So we thought maybe dragging downhill was going to be better, and then we could pull the truck around. But going downhill sucked really bad too. And I shot mine. It was kind of late too, but I guess it was only
1:15. We both shot.
We didn't start dragging until 3.
Funny, both bucks in 2 days. we're following does between 1 and 2.
Yeah.
Same area, kind of.
Yeah.
But it was smart to
Middle
go
of the
back in there. You know there's a hot doe.
Yeah, definitely.
So, like, go back into that.
And there was a
Why
lot
not?
of buck sign in there.
Yeah.
You know, there was. I mean, the limited walking around that Chris and I did around that area, the limited that we did, we saw so much. So God knows how much more there even was.
Well,
so.
and when I put this video out, too, there's going to be something I'm not sharing on the podcast that'll be a big surprise.
Yeah,
surprise
definitely.
in the video.
That's definitely a bonus and definitely worth to watch.
That
That's
you
for
have
sure.
to you have to see.
That's true.
But yeah, man, that was so fun.
Yeah, that was awesome.
That's
Crazy
cool.
24 hours.
That's so cool.
Yeah, unbelievable. It's like you don't get too many moments like that. Like, it's so funny because I'm like talking to my other friends on the ride home, and I'm like, yeah, I just got back from the, and I'm like, oh my god, dude, like one of my friends, he just shot a freaking huge buck in New Hampshire right now. I can't believe it. Freaking 24 hours, and then like a half an hour, like, holy shit, my other friend just shot a huge. They're all like, Jesus Christ, what the hell? A couple of the guys hunt, and you know, they're like, Jesus Christ, what the hell? They haven't got any deer.
It turned on for everybody, dude. Then Pat Burns got his deer the day after that.
Yeah,
Yeah, that's right.
And
and
I
then
think a bunch of
Tommy
other-
there.
Yeah.
So Chad shot his, and then Tommy shot. He had lost one over the Quabbin hunt, but then a few days later, couple days
shot a
after
great
that,
one.
he shot a big buck
Yep.
Good friend of mine shot a really big buck.
that week.
Just one like 97 or something. Yeah, it was like the day before you shot yours.
It's crazy.
Yeah,
that week
Mass
was-
Shotgun opened a week earlier than it typically does this year, and it was open during November, which is like
Yeah, hardly happens.
yeah,
Yeah.
that's pretty sweet. But yeah, that's so cool. Just all the ups and downs throughout the season,
Yep.
everything like that, and it all came together for all of us at the same time right there. It's so
Yep.
cool.
And that whole time I was sad and still thinking about the buck that I had shot in the neck
Yeah,
and maybe
yeah.
he was dead. You know, I didn't know. And then 2 days ago when I was hunting back in there, there's an even bigger, like a younger, like probably a 5-year-old that's a 10-pointer in there that's in the 150s.
Wow.
And he's a monster. And I'm back into that piece again hunting. And this guy texts me and he goes, "Hey, he just sent me a video of a bald deer." And the day after I shot him, this guy had heard that I had shot that deer, and he reached out to me. He's like, "Yeah, this is like one of my favorite deer. I know like all the deer
And
in this forest, and you know I've been watching this one for many years." And he had thousands. He was showing me all these pictures and videos, and he goes, "I'm sick to my stomach because, you know, it feels like one of my family members is dead." And he's like, "I can't even sleep and this and that." But he
Holy
was like,
shit,
"But
huh?
congratulations that you even got a shot on him, and I'll let you know because I got cameras everywhere. I'll let you know if I ever see him again, just to let you know." And he didn't let me know. But come to find out, a few days ago when he sent me the picture of him bald, I was like, "Who's that?" And he's like, "That's Wide Load." That's what he called him, Wide Load. And I'm like, "No shit." And he goes, "Yeah." He goes, "I actually found out the day after you shot him. I had him on cameras alive and well, but I didn't want to send it to you because I thought you'd be in there to try to kill him again, and he feels like a family member." So he was just like, he's like, "I knew you wouldn't give up if I sent it to you, but I did know the day after." And we were talking the whole time between. I'd be like, "Yo, do you see any videos or any pictures?" He'd be like,
Wanna
"Nope."
tell you.
Well, he didn't until he
that's
saw
funny.
that he had shed.
But that's a good. Hey, you got a good closure.
But at
to
least
that
I
one.
know.
Yeah,
Yeah,
you know,
which
and
is-
he's
yeah,
not dead
exactly.
too.
I was like, I can't blame
It's not
you.
wasted
Like,
somewhere, and he's still alive, and
Yeah.
maybe you'll see him next year.
well, it made me feel really good that he's alive anyway.
Yeah.
And he shed, so I want to go in there and try to find those sheds.
Yeah.
That guy's never found the
Consolation
sheds. He
prize.
knows this deer, and he's just like, he hides those sheds well. I've never been able to find them. I always know I can see him with one, and I know that one's dropped, and I can go try to find. He tries to find them, and he can't. There's something weird about this deer. He's just super smart. Or, I don't know.
Interesting.
I can't wait to go try to find those sheds anyway.
Yeah, that's cool.
All right, long ass podcast. It's probably 3 hours.
You get some editing to do.
I'm not editing anything. I don't edit.
Especially the part that's about Kevin
Yeah.
being a predator.
my criminal background.
Yeah, I can.
Poor guy's
I
gonna
can edit
lose his
that out.
job next week.
Now my wife knows.
Oh no. Well, good job, boys.
Yeah.
Good
Good luck.
job.
You guys got a couple weeks left. So.
Yep.
Yep.
Yeah. Like
We'll
a
do
week-
this
week and a
again.
half.
Do this again soon.
Cool. Sounds good.
Thanks, boys.